Detective is no longer in my brain. I want
Yeah,
not
no,
to think
that-
any more about that fucking
So,
show.
so
I really want to watch to see what
for,
happens next, though.
for a second, I was like, man, why the fuck did Detective go before Peach Boy? And then I remembered Gundam, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that tracks.
But we're live.
Oh fuck, I need to.
We're live.
Woo!
So, welcome
Something
everybody.
something. Spoiler is harsh language.
Yes. Welcome
Or-
to the 5th episode of Saber Slay Anime Fray. There will be spoilers, harsh language. We're gonna get into it tonight. We have 8 shows left. It does not. All of a sudden, the difference between 9 and 8 is like substantial, in my opinion. I just feel like there is so much less compared to watching 9 and talking about 9 compared to 8. It feels ridiculous.
When we watched, cause when we watched yesterday or whatever to get the last few before remake, I was like, that's why today I was like, no question mark. I'm like, I don't feel like I've watched everything but remake, but I couldn't think of any show I hadn't watched yet.
I scroll through that list and I'm like, man, this is interesting. We'll brief do the rundown. Hi guys, if you didn't tune in Thursday, oh boy, did you miss something. It was a very loud stream. It was a very long stream. It was only 25 seconds shorter than our last stream, however, which is wild to think of, that we, with less shows than them, talked
And less
for,
people.
Yeah, talked for 25
that's-
seconds longer.
That's because we're intellectual.
But had a much more in-depth.
It's the Winnie the Pooh meme. It's the Winnie the
They
Pooh meme.
are
It's like,
They are the intellectual.
That's
it's
not
the Winnie the
even-
it's the Winnie the Pooh meme where it's like group 1, group 2. Yes,
That's
indeed.
not
anime.
even like a shot at them. They know. If
the
they tried
monkey
to
brains
argue with
persistent.
me that we have very in-depth discussion, the most discussion we had was the gun physics and detective. Which, by the way, if you've never heard Alex talk about how guns work in anime and how much
The
it bothers him
pepper
when
box
they're wrong,
revolver supposed to revolve.
one of my favorite points from him was, when you wave a gun around, it doesn't make noise. When they wave a gun around, it makes way too much noise. He also got into the logistics of what it would take to stop that crossbow bolt from hitting her, and how there is no way for her not to have died if it was going to impact any part of her body. I love hearing him talk. It is one of my favorite things. But yeah, we had some very great conversation, and to contrast, what you obviously see is going to be our first show for discussion. Vanitas is gone on that side of the podcast. It is truly a different breed over there. I'm so excited for the next week because it's going to be disgusting. But
Yeah, because you need to watch
yeah, I know.
that one show.
I know. Don't mind. There's a couple of shows over there I have to watch that I'm not too happy about, but what I am watching that I am happy about is, one, since another week has passed for them, I get to watch an additional episode of Moonlight and Duke of Death, which I love both of those shows, so very happy about. And then two, I started and watched all, including the newest episode of Kageki Shoujo, which I've mentioned it briefly because I watched the first episode when I think we had started, or by our second episode. It is the kinda idol show that's coming out this season. It's about a group of girls who go to a all-female performing arts school where they put on plays and performances, and the idea is that the women play both the male and female roles in the show. I said it on the other podcast, since I'm not really into idol stuff, I'm sure if I was more into idol, I'd be like, man, this is all the same beats that every idol performing arts show goes through. It's kind of boring. But since I'm not that into it, I'm like, yeah, I like this. This is all nice. It handles its characters very well. Episode 8, which just came out this week for it, an incredible episode devoted solely to one of the supporting cast characters to explain her motivations and her background, and it shapes her character in a completely different light, and all is based off the fact that she cuts her hair, and everyone's like, oh wow, you cut your hair, why did you do that? And she's like, well, it's really hot, and then that just launches this whole backstory explanation. It's incredibly well done. I really enjoy it. It seems like it's going to be a great show. And then the only other thing I've remotely done is I started reading Peach Boy. And I can confirm Peach Boy, the manga, does just open with her meeting Makoto in her town. That is literally the first panel is her running into him as he's coming into town. Which, when it reframes it that way, you realize a couple more things are more enjoyable. The Makoto, you're a girl bit is more enjoyable because you as the audience reading that panel don't know that actually yet. So like that's
It's the first time they used the bit.
they still use it too much as the story continues and beat you over the head with it, but it at least feels more genuine because your first interaction with him isn't, well, I know he's a guy. Your first interaction is everyone thinks he looks like a girl. Which like, so at least they're consistent with that trope is something I can say about it. Some interesting things of note. Man, so there's a couple of things that are really important that I don't think the show goes into because the show is still missing, and in episode 7 might have fixed this. I haven't watched any further because I technically still have it on the other podcast, so I'm trying not to. There's a huge arc we are still missing. It is not just the tree Oni and that Oni losing, and like that Oni being beaten by Sally. There is an entire gap of time from when they leave the city that's destroyed to when they get to the tournament. There's an entire character missing, a very important character who is supposed to teach Sally magic. Which is how they get into the plot point of them meeting the tree Oni. There is a whole separate another interaction between Sally and Makoto where Makoto asks her where Sally basically sits down and goes, "Can you tell me what discrimination is? Can you explain what racism is? Because, like, this is blowing my mind. How does this happen?" And Makoto does this Makoto thing where he's like, well, people just want revenge. It's just a cycle. You're the only person who thinks like you. And she goes, so I'm the only one who can stop this. And he goes, well, if you want to think about it like that. And she goes, well, then I guess I have to keep going. Because there's literally a moment in the manga where she goes, I just watched the whole town get destroyed. I don't understand how I beat this Oni. One of my companions is an Oni who has nothing. One of them's a demi-human, and the other's a knight who's lost his entire life. Why am I still going on this journey? So, like, there's some character motivation we drastically miss out on there. In addition to that, and this is probably the thing that has the two things that have me most upset.
That's crazy because the shit you just said sounds like a really good show.
Yeah, crazy.
So I was correct with being surprised that I didn't know why we were calling or Oni Carrot. We missed the scene where they name her Carrot because it happens it happens in that. So this is very important. You might recall when they get to the town in episode 5, they go to check in and Hawthorne's like, we probably need to be more careful because they're not going to let a demi-human in here. And Sally says the line, well, can't you just get us in like you did last time? And he goes, no, we're past the checkpoint. Well, that's the thing. We never see them at the checkpoint. And when they get to the town of the checkpoint, you watch Hawthorne flex his ability to go, you know me, you trust me, I'm the captain of the guard, this demi-human's safe. And the innkeeper goes, okay, I trust you. And it establishes his character. Immediately afterwards, Sally walks out the door after Hawthorne's like, go buy some food for us. And then Hawthorne has a little mental breakdown of trying to keep himself composed in front of her.
After what happened with the fucking town exploding, at which point, Frau walks up to him and goes, you're a good person. You care. You're a hero. Things are gonna get better, probably. And he goes, what do you mean, probably? And then they fist bump again.
This sounds like a good story.
Yes,
And then
like,
Frau,
why couldn't we get this?
and then Frau turns, looks at the Oni, and goes, and calls her little girl, to which she goes, I'm not a little girl. And she goes, but I don't have a name for you, which is a very important distinction. To which Frau then goes, well, you want a name? How about I call you Carrot? And she goes, I don't no. And then she goes, and this is a pronunciation thing, what if we do Carrot with a K? And when she proposes this, it flashes an image in the manga panel of a character Frau previously knows who is depicted as an angel over Carrot's portrait. Which means that she sees someone else in Carrot, and that name has significant importance to why she gives it to her.
Man, that sounds like a really good anime. I hope it comes out soon.
Sounds like a really good manga to a terrible anime.
I hope this show comes out soon. It sounds pretty interesting.
One small thing that may not be so small, and the other thing is like they have this little end panel at the end of the Makoto and Carrot fight, where he just stabs her. They have this little text box that explains that Onis are ranked from low, mid, high to divine. However, only Onis high rank or higher have names. And it is considered disrespectful for humanoid Onis to take names,
As such, in the manga, Carrot is referred to previously as the Eyed Oni. And or main leader or blonde hair priest Oni is referred to as the Imperial Oni. They don't have names. The only
That's
one we've
actually
mentioned.
really
Arbitrarily
interesting.
gave them names in
So
the anime.
the ones we meant that did have names were Set and were the two who attacked Sally's village at the start. Those three did have names. But even because they're more humanoid looking, the other ones don't get names, and the Blue Mask Oni is just called Blue Mask Oni because he's not high enough to get a name.
I'm in on that. Why couldn't we fucking get that in the show?
Which explains why Carrot has to be given a name because she doesn't have one, and it also humanizes her. Finally, the scene where Sally
There's
fights
more.
Set, and this is like,
Fucking
this
more.
one's not as big because they keep some of this. In the scene where Sally fights Set in the anime, she's a lot more like droned out, unemotional, very unresponsive. She talks a decent amount in that fight with Set in the manga, but it's still very clear she's in some kind of trance. But
She's
there's
in
a
the Oni zone.
but there's a point where Set goes, "I'm glad to have fought two strong adventurers," in reference to her and Frau. And in the anime, that's all the line he gives. There's no response from Sally. In the manga, Sally goes, "I'm not an adventurer. I'm just a girl traveling." And that seems significantly important if that line's there to me.
Get
That
in the zone.
they're not
Oni zone.
establishing her as an experienced fighter yet. So I'm very upset with what Peach Boy.
Man, that sounds like a really,
Oh.
really cool anime.
I
I
mean-
hope it comes out soon, man.
I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it a lot, and they do a lot of really cute. Outside of the first one, which I sent you guys, which was just the shot of Sally with her tits, it's just big old titties. Like all the other ending shots are really cute, and before each like chapter of the volume, they do these nice like alternative drawings to like reframe Sally and Frau a lot of time, like in relation to
different
their
outfits and stuff?
setting. So like they have a shot of Sally and Frau in prisoners' clothes, which like the actual manga panel doesn't have. And when they start to meet the witch, they have them in witch apprentices outfits. It's adorable. It's great.
It sounds like the panels that
Just read it. I'm
um
telling you, just read Peach
or
Boy. It's
Mia has a lot of good
enjoyable.
ones like that too, where it has like different outfits and like different like cover arts for like the books. Like there's a lot of really, really cool like color
Mhm.
drawings of them.
Yeah.
And like
Oh.
Yeah,
And this
so
is
neat.
like the last. Sorry. Also, it makes sense for why they're in that
Good.
town doing the tournament. For Sally to learn magic, she takes on a debt of like 1,000 gold. So it makes sense that they're in a town doing a tournament to make money, and Hawthorne's not just like showing his stuff. And without spoiling anything further, I will say there also is a very good character reason why it appears that Hawthorne's going to be doing that tournament arc as well. Hawthorne's a much more fleshed out and enjoyable
Hawthorne
character
feels
in
like
the
a much more
manga.
useful character in the
He feels
manga
like a
because in the
fucking
anime it feels like
character.
he's not useful.
Because the
Like,
arc
and
they
he-
decide to cut out is where Hawthorne like takes some action, meets with characters from his past, talks
Uses
with
his,
people.
like, status,
Yeah,
basically.
It's very well done, and I can't wait. I don't even know. I'm not even at a point where I'm at the town where they meet the vampire. That hasn't even happened
I'm
yet.
fine having a character in a show who's just there because he has status.
Yeah.
Right? That lets the characters progress. I'm fine with that. That makes it useful.
Yeah.
Whereas in
Also-
the anime, you're just sitting there watching like any fight, Hawthorne just dies here, right? Like he's
Yeah.
fucked.
There's a really good line where after Makoto talks to Sally, and Sally's like, "I'm gonna go stop discrimination, or at least try to make people start
I'm gonna
to change
stop
their mind."
racism.
She's a little more realistic. She's like, I'm at least gonna try to make people slowly shift their point of view. There's a point where before Makoto walks off, she goes, "Do you want to adventure with me?" And he walks away, and after saying no, and as he walks away, the dog walks up with him, and the dog goes, "So how'd it go?" And he's like, "Know how I thought she was gonna ask to come with me?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "No, she asked if I wanted to come with her." And he's like, "Well, are you at least gonna look back as you're walking away?" And he's like, "No, because if I do that, I'm worried I might actually turn around and join her." And it's
Which would have been
almost a human moment for a character who the manga clearly depicts as being a sociopath with problems, by the way. Like, that part's pretty on point from the anime. He is fucked up in both variants, so I recommend reading Peach Boy. I think it's gonna. As soon as it either gets voted off on the other podcast, or as soon as I can, I'm probably just gonna read it, and I'll still finish the anime to see how
See-
much it angers me. But
See, here's your problem. You think they're gonna vote off good or bad shows.
Yeah.
That's your problem.
Yeah. It's like that's the thing is like I could see where you were coming from with the like but it might get better. I could totally see when it was on, but now after you've read it and after
Yeah.
what I've just heard, I'm just like
I'm so glad.
no,
Oh, also,
no, it's not.
there's no octopus gag. Never happens in the first meeting. Never happens again in the next village. A lot of that stuff seems a lot of like the village walking around interaction stuff in the town seems entirely.
Man, thank
fluff.
God for anime only like titty scenes. That's what I needed, and tentacle porn scenes.
It's funny
Ooh.
because that's what I expected to be like the actual scenes
Like,
because like
I wouldn't be
this is the
surprised
Kobayashi
if there's
artist.
like a side
That's
chapter,
almost
like
a
a
very
point
an anime
5 where
thing.
they do that bit. But I haven't gotten there yet, so as far as I know, it's not in the manga so far. So great.
So I've been rereading Hori-san, and I'm almost done with that, and it's still really good, and I love that
Good.
manga. It's really cute. And man, it's one of those mangas where it's like, having read it now, like almost twice done. I'm at the realization where it's like, man, this manga could have just been the greatest of all time if it just ran another couple like
if
volumes.
it was 2
Like,
seasons
No,
if
no,
it's
no,
just
no,
or the anime.
the manga. If the manga was another couple volumes long, it would be so good because there's so many like just like open and for interpretation relationships in the manga, right? Like it doesn't close out any relationship outside of Hori and Miyamura basically being engaged to a degree. Because like it hints at a lot of things. Like it hints at, Yoshikawa, the blonde-haired friend, her and Toru versus red-haired guy with her sister.
Akane.
Akane. Yeah, Akane. And like there's like the Remy relationship. There's Kono-san with him potentially, like as a possible like thing that they set up in like one of the chapters, and they just never touch that again. And it's like, man, give me more relationships of these characters. Don't just end it. And I get you have to after a certain point, right? Because time progresses, time moves on, even if
Yeah.
like especially in a school manga, time has to move. That's how it works. You can't go back. But like, man, like give me some college years. Give me some like, just give me some like after story.
Yeah,
Like,
I was gonna say just do a cloud after
which
story.
Yeah.
sucks that there's just a lot of open. Like, I'm fine leaving stuff open to interpretation, but there's just so much that like, man, I just want to see cute things again. It's so good.
Yeah.
But like
they should
outside
just
of
straight up
that,
do a Clannad after story thing where it's just them as adults.
outside of reading that, Kaguya's back off break, resolved the arc. I wish there was a little more drama with it, honestly. Like a little more tears or like fighting or something like that. I think that would have been good. But I'm happy with where it is. It's good. Caught up with One Piece, of course. Caught up with a lot of manga. And I'm doing
One Piece was crazy good this week.
It's crazy good every week.
As Alfred said, One Piece is crazy good this week.
Dude, it's so crazy that I get to like watch Alfred post that weekly now, and I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, welcome to the club.
I mean, he's been reading it for literal years now.
But,
Actually, no, he started
maybe
just after
it
you
was
and I
this
did.
year. He watched.
Yeah,
He
started-
watched it.
He started just after you and I started reading it.
I remember
or
hearing it
watching
Alfred Deluxe like a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that long
but-
ago.
But yeah. Outside, I've been doing a Diamond Nuzlocke on my stream. It's been
great.
going. It's been going. I have lost 7
I-
Pokemon as of last night, including my Machop, who died because he was fighting another Machop, and it revenge crit me by living at 1 HP, and that was fun. That was cool. And I'm definitely not leveling Pokemon off stream right now during this podcast. That'd be bad.
Dodge, just put in rare candy. Save yourself the grind.
I would, but like that.
Just
a
don't
lot of work.
just don't use them until you're not using
Leveling.
items in battle anyway. So like
I
so
know.
like the Gen 4 fact that if you hack in rare candies it gives you max of all medicine doesn't matter because you're not using
Yeah, but the thing is,
medicine in battle.
there's also EVs in the game.
That's true.
So the battles you're doing grinding, all are also giving you EVs to your Pokemon, which
Yeah.
although isn't much compared to IV values, like it still
Yeah.
matters to a
Mhm.
degree.
I just
And you're
look at it
just-
as
but-
saving me the time from grinding and making it a little harder because I am not getting those EVs.
See, I just look at it as I'm really lazy and don't feel like finding in the ROM editor to do that because I also have to do that for like trade levels, and that's a lot of work.
That's fair.
When I catch Kadabra, I'll do that. But outside of that, I've just been doing that. I finished Breath of the Wild since last week.
Ooh, I have. Okay, so I've never actually beaten Breath of the Wild. I stopped at the final boss.
It's not hard.
I know
Um,
it's not.
This game,
In all honesty,
like
there's
fighting
like
the
it's like -3 star that happens with the boss too.
fighting the Hernoxes, not the Hernoxes, but the the Lionels is like almost harder sometimes than fighting the actual like
Uh-huh.
divine
It's
beast and the
such a
boss.
test of skill on your ability to like use the dodge and like dash, and even then, sometimes those abilities don't work in your
And also
favor.
like your like reaction to like, okay, I used a stun arrow, let me walk up as he's bent over and like stab him in the back a bit. The Guardians are free. If you die to a Guardian, you're kind of trolling in my
Yeah,
opinion.
if you die to a Guardian post Master Sword, you're
Yeah.
Not even post Master Sword, like
post
once
getting a
once
Guardian
like,
item.
major tests of strengths are only hard if you're
I don't
really
get
bad
good at
at
those
not dodging
Guardians.
3 defenses.
No,
Oh, Guardians,
when I think Guardian,
yeah,
I think the Spider Lads.
I mean, I just parry. Get good at parrying.
I mean, yeah,
That's my advice.
but
You need a
like,
good enough shield to do that.
No, you don't. Parries don't
No,
use
Really?
parry
I thought-
doesn't
I
use
thought they do.
durability.
Huh.
You can parry with a pot lid. If you let it hit the pot lid, it will break every shield.
That just means
like
I'm not
almost
good
every
at
shield in the
parrying,
game.
which isn't a surprise. I've never been.
Parrying is
Yeah.
not easy. It's all about like learning. Like the second you see the beam start to fire,
Yeah.
that's when you can parry. It's like
it's
my
one of
biggest-
those things where you also need to know at what distance am I, because at different distances, it's different times you
Yeah.
need to parry. Because if you're farther, you can actually react to it.
You can wait, but you have to
Yeah.
parry to beat Final Ganon. So
Are you ready to
Yeah,
play
I-
the new Pokemon game and drastically compare it to Breath of the Wild? Because that's the only thing you're allowed to do.
Pokemon Unite.
I'm mad about that.
Legend of
The
Arceus.
DP. Okay, but the Diamond Pearl remakes look fucking clean, and I don't care who fucking
I'm
says they
excited,
don't.
I'm excited for both of them.
Yeah.
I think
They
both
look
have great
so good.
potential.
I love the
I
2D
didn't
art
watch
style.
any of the Legends Arceus portion, partially because I already know I'm buying the
Yeah.
game, and it's one of those things where I kind of want to go as blind as possible, which is what I did for Sword and Shield.
I
I
don't care
wanted to
about the
just
game,
see
I'll
what
be
they were
honest,
going to
I don't
do with the
care.
Diamond Pearl remakes,
They
and
look so
the
good.
underground changes.
The
Absolutely,
fact that the
wonderful.
underground is in the game still, I am so happy for.
Mhm.
I hope they add in. Please add in post game. Please give me something to
So-
do. Please give me Battle Frontier of some kind or
Please
Battle
give me
Tower or
Battle
something.
Frontier.
Even just give me Battle Tower. Give me Battle Tower. Or the battle area better be back.
The talk of there's apparently a leak, a map that's been shown, and the map does not show the full battle frontier, but it does show a location for a battle tower. But it also still
I mean, the
shows
battle
the
area
Pow
did exist
Park
in the
area
original.
existing, which is very interesting.
I wonder what they're gonna put down there. That's a
Yeah,
good question.
It still exists
also-
on the map, so it has to be something.
I swear
I
to
also
God,
like
if I have to
contests
transfer
being really
Pokemon to Sword and
games.
Shield 6 at a time, I'm gonna scream with a stupid mini game.
I will say my only complaint, like it's gonna be a long-term complaint when the Switch Wi-Fi is in the past. You're going to have Pokemon that are going to be locked away from you, just like you do with modern day, where if you play on an emulator, you can't get anything that you would need the underground for. Like, if at any point in time the underground becomes inaccessible, you're losing a ton of Pokemon. In
Yeah.
these
I think that's
remakes.
fine, but the problem is like the Switch has such a longevity that like I'm not worried about that because by the time that remake's done, there's gonna
Yeah.
be 4 more Pokemon games out.
We're hoping.
But like plus Pokemon Home and stuff makes it so like modernized. Like again, I am 6 Pokemon away from having a full living dex in Pokemon Home. They're all
What do you
fucking
need?
mythicals. You want the list? I'll pull up the list while you guys are talking about what you're doing.
Getting
Uh-huh.
mythicals sucks because there's no way to get them. That's how mythicals work. You can't get them legit other than a few in Gen 4 if you use an action replay or whatever to walk through walls.
Or if you had the events.
Mm.
I mean, but yeah,
There is
that's
certain
if you
events you can-
somehow still have the lunar wing,
Well, yeah.
the
not
whatever it is to get the
anymore.
shaman.
There is certain events you can actually do in black and white. Funny enough, like you can there's a IP you can connect to with your Wi-Fi that'll automatically give you a random mystery gift. The problem is there's a fuck ton of mystery gifts and they're all fucking random.
Yeah.
So like still I spent like 2 hours trying to get a Victini off that and I couldn't. I'll pull up the docs while you guys are talking.
Michael,
What have you been up to, Michael?
I haven't done like shit this week. I can't really think of anything other than I play more zombies. Vibing with that. One of the big things I did with that is there's a custom map. It's a really big one called Nightmare. It's hard to explain how good this map is because if you've played Call of Duty Zombies before, you know the general system: round base, blah blah blah. Survival gets the map. Open up all the shit. Survive. Nightmare feels like a Resident Evil game built in the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 engine.
I'm in.
It's fun. I would look up the map if you don't want to buy the game yourself and do it. It's a ridiculously well-made map. And every time I see it, I'm like, how the fuck did someone build this as a custom map in the Black Ops 3 engine? It is ridiculous. It is wonderful. I mean, other than that, I played a little bit more Sea of Thieves, played some Warframe,
Ooh.
the usuals, but other
This
than
is
that,
Black
just
Ops
been-
3, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Mason's doing research now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
It's it's ridiculous.
But yeah, cool.
What have you been up to, Mason?
Didn't say.
Not shit. Um, I I've been extremely busy this week, so like all I've really done is I've gone to work and then uh Wednesday Wednesday I went and played Magic with friends, and then last night I went to an F&M for Magic. Because last night was really funny. So I have a really dumb deck that is I call it red green cards I like. That's the archetype. Because so in Magic there's a bunch of formats, and there's a format that came out like within the past 2 years called Pioneer, and it's like a non-rotating format that's newer than the other three non-rotating formats. Um, and it was like supposed to reinvigorate Magic and be more easily accessible than the other ones. And then COVID happened, and that format barely exists now. I still had my deck from that format, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna switch it from a Pioneer deck into a Modern deck. Shouldn't be that hard. I know it's not going to do well, but it's going to be funny. So the basis of the deck is red green dinosaurs, and it was really funny. Where in round 2, I played a land that is name a creature type. Creatures, when you cast a spell with this land that is that creature type, it cannot be countered. And I go, play Cavern of Souls, name dinosaur, and 6 people around me turn from the games that they're playing, look at me, and go, "What the fuck did you just say?"
That's good.
Yeah, that was really fun. Also, the deck kind of overperformed because I ended up going 2-2 and almost went 3-1. So, like, deck's actually not bad. Still not what I'm going to play because I have a tournament coming up next Saturday, but yeah. Also planning shenanigans for my birthday because my birthday is on Friday.
Ooh.
Woo.
Yeah. I'm a
No,
boomer.
I'm
no
coming
Magic
out.
format will ever be as good as Prismatic, in my opinion.
Prismatic.
I think it's what it's called. It's the fucking your deck has to have at least 50 cards of each color. So it has to
What?
be at minimum 250 cards large.
We're
50
playing
cards.
Battle of Wits, baby.
It's a fucking deck. The fucking,
Okay.
it is it's an entirely a meme format. But I fucking love everything about the idea of it. The decks just have to be huge.
So, just going quick on the Magic thing because that's what I talk about. So I saw a couple of months ago at one point. So there's a card in Magic called Battle of Wits. The standard Magic deck is 60 cards with a 15 card sideboard.
Or
Battle of Wits,
100 if you're playing Commander.
or 100 if you're playing Commander, but like if we're playing a competitive format, it's 60 cards. Um, Battle of Wits is a 2 and 2 blue mana enchantment that says if your card at the beginning of your upkeep, if your library has at least 200 cards in it, you win the game. Someone made this a deck because everyone sees that card as a meme card, and then I saw a deck like 2 months ago that was a Battle of Wits deck in Modern that was essentially we're going to throw every combo deck in the format into one deck and then also have Battle of Wits there. So it is quite literally 4 decks smashed together and then they have Battle of Wits, and it's fucking fantastic.
that sounds amazing.
Similarly,
It's
to
so
anyone who's
good.
ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, this would be the example of if you just jam Exodia into a deck for no good reason, eventually, probability-wise, you will win by drawing your win con. It'll be funny
Yeah, it
the
will
one
eventually
time it
happen.
happens, but
Don't. You should not talk to me about Exodia. Fun fact, I was a top 10 speedrunner of the Exodia deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist.
of course you were.
You would
I
be
was.
a Yu-Gi-Oh player.
There
I
was a
know he
point.
played Yu-Gi-Oh.
My buddy was
Yeah,
a top tier Yu-Gi-Oh player in Duel Links at one point.
I am. I was getting up there. I think I hit King of Games 2 last season, something like that. And then I just got bored and stopped.
Your
But
buddy Matt does tournaments for Runeterra as well.
Damn.
I need to play more Runeterra. Also, the new cards are getting spoiled for Runeterra, and it looks fucking sick. If you don't know, Runeterra is getting a new region. They're getting Vandal City, and it looks sweet because all the Vandal City cards are just whatever. So it's a lot of cards are being errataed and patched. So any of the old Yordles that used to be like from whatever region they are now Vandal City and that
Yordle.
region. Also
Good.
Scion. Oh, what?
I said good.
Yes, it's actually really nice. And also Vandal City does not count towards your regions.
Okay.
It's
I'm
just a flavor thing.
almost
um,
done seeing all the Pokemon.
Also, Scion got spoiled. Scion is a new champion for Runeterra, and he is very good in discard decks.
Makes
So,
sense. Makes
We're
sense.
closing in on my every 3 month or so revisit to Eternal, so I can't wait to relearn what 2 extra sets have dropped and additional 2 new keywords have appeared, and to see whether or not my decks hold up in the current format, which it might.
I tried Eternal, and I know it is made by people who play Magic competitively, and I know it is meant to be Magic, but not Magic. I just couldn't get into it.
I like them a lot because they're also the company that handles the online Pokemon game. They do the online Pokemon one, so
Pokemon Masters.
they have a good not the trading card. They do the online trading
okay.
card game. So they have a good card. They have a good balance sense. The biggest thing is that like their player base is dwindled from here and there, and like they release a lot of stuff to the point that I think now, where the game technically is very free to play friendly, it's very hard to be competitive free to play friendly because there's so many sets, there's so many campaigns.
So much shit.
Like it would take you a very long time unless you are gunning for a very particular new strat, and even then some of those aren't fun. I popped back in during Mandrake format and I wanted to shoot myself.
Okay.
Does the game have like a standard system, like a standard versus
It
wild?
it
My
has
brain just thinks
different
a Hearthstone
formats.
standard versus wild.
It
I
has
guess ready for the
different-
hard list of the
Yes.
898 Pokemon I'm missing.
Yes.
Here's the 5 Pokemon I think I'm missing: Victini, Hoopa, Marshadow, Zeraora, and Zarude.
Yeah, those
2
are
of which
fair.
are really recent.
Yeah. I
Ooh,
would-
And the
yeah.
other 3 are very hard to get.
yeah, that's a pretty nasty list.
Fun fact, if you get a full living dex in Pokemon Home and then refresh it, you get a Pokeball skinned Magearna.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get it.
My
That's really
And,
neat.
and so last year, like I had free time, and so I was just like, I think this was last summer or last winter after like school ended. I had a lot of free time on my hands, and so I was playing through like Pokemon Platinum with my Shiny Charm glitch file,
Mhm.
and I was like, why don't I just like make a living dex? And so I like started compiling with Pokemon Home and everything, and like getting everything together, and like looking at like the list, and like, okay, I need to play Pokemon Pearl up to this point to get this Pokemon, so I can trade it to Platinum, so I can update it to Home, so I can do this like hours and hours of work to get 893 of them. I am so close. So fucking close. I hope they add. Speaking of Pokemon, I hope they add evolutions to the new games. That's what I'm hoping.
There's new ones in Arceus.
What?
There's two new-
Bascu, whatever the fuck is the thing that exists.
Basculegion,
and Stantler
uh,
has an evolution.
and we have
Mhm.
different Growlithe.
Yep.
Yeah,
Very Growlithe,
But
very,
I'm more so
very-
saying like we get like new because Gen 4 was big on giving third tier
Yes.
evolutions to Pokemon that drastically need them, and there's a lot of Pokemon I could think of that drastically need them from like Gens 5, 6, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Like
still ones from the
like
original gens that
Basculin.
still need it. Yeah.
like Basculin needs one. Like Gyarados needs one. No, it doesn't. Like Crocodile could use. I want a tier 4 evolution.
Crocodile's already amazing though.
So
Crocodile's a homie.
He gets Moxie. He's broken.
I want to transition us into the actual anime, but before I do, I will say to
True.
Michael to address your comment quick. In terms of formats in Eternal, the best format, hands down, in my opinion, I think most people agree with it, is their draft format, because you don't need anything prior. You draft cards. The draft set is curated. They change it out with each set of cards. It's very well balanced usually. It's its own completely standalone format, and every card you draft you keep. The only problem is you need a certain amount of currency you earn through playing the other types of modes to keep playing draft. But like it has a what any in my opinion any game that lets you draft packs and then keep the cards you've drafted is wonderful.
You know, it
that's-
was more just like like in Hearthstone, they have the two very distinct
yeah they do
standard and wild.
they do
And
too.
standard is your 2 recent years essentially.
Yeah.
When a new year starts, it kills anything 2 years before.
They call it it's ranked and expedition is the difference in Eternal. So let's drop it in. I have a gift for you all. There it is.
That's right. Watch anime.
We got a power ranking chart. I promise you,
rankings.
despite what it may look like, I'm probably slaying a lot of things this week just because I can't decide. So we'll
Yeah,
see
I think
if
that's
that
valid,
changes.
honestly.
You might be able to figure out from where down I'm probably gonna slay based on my power
Hmm,
ranking.
Yeah.
But I'm still thinking
You might
about
you might
that.
be able to figure out what we're looking at
Oh, I
slaying
know.
too.
And
in the collective.
And when we get to that show, I think I am contractually obligated
talk
to
about
talk
it.
about one thing in particular right away. But let's firstly talk about a wonderful show. Mason, it's Vanitas
Yeah.
time.
It's Vanitas time. So, like, nothing happened in this episode, and that was okay.
Mhm, I
Because this
agree.
was a really cute episode. It was a very cute and also very horny episode.
Yeah.
So I really like. So one of the first things that happens in this episode is someone calls out Vanitas for forcing himself on John, and he goes, "My bad." That's the actual fucking words.
Mhm.
He just straight up says, "My bad." So we also learned that like when vampires feed on vampires, no mark is left, but when they feed on humans, they leave a permanent hickey. Also, Vanitas kind of had like human moments in this episode where like he acknowledged that he's an asshole sometimes. Also, apparently, vampire bites have an aphrodisiac effect, which is why everyone's so horny.
This is an uncommon. This isn't. I mean, it's also not always the thing, but it is an uncommon,
It's
especially
It's a pretty common thing for vampires, I think.
more
in the
modern.
live Reddit,
More
at least.
modern, at least.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we also got Noe was like pouty because he was jealous of Jean for drinking Vanitas' blood first, which I just thought was like my main thought throughout most of this episode was just like we just need the fan fiction writers and the yaoi writers to just get on this show already because holy shit.
They almost certainly already are, but let's be honest.
Yes.
The show is also trying to give it like that straight out in case someone's not comfortable with it by going, oh, it's just because Vanitas' blood is really sweet and Noe's a food freak, which we really get in this episode is how much this man loves sweet things.
Yes, absolutely. Also, there were just like some very like neat animation touches I thought in this episode. So like, there's a point where Noe drinks Dami's blood after she drinks his blood, and after he like turns it around on her while he's drinking her blood,
Oh, he
she
turned
like her eye her the tips of her
Yep.
ears get red, which was just like a neat touch because it's like, oh man, that's what people who are like embarrassed do. I thought that was neat.
That's body being body. Yay.
Yes. So we got one of the best set of lines from Vanitas, I think, in this episode, which was Noe and Vanitas are dancing, and Noe goes, "Hey Vanitas, what do you like about John?" And Vanitas looks at him and goes, "She's beautiful, she's awkward, she's really powerful, and she's got gigantic tits, and she does not like me at all." Which I just thought, like, it was
Which
just
you might
good.
think would be a turnoff. However, he also then goes on to say, because I would never like anybody that likes me.
Which, like, good read, Vanitas. You understand that nobody should like you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that in my asshole characters.
Yeah,
think this
it's-
is a great character episode. Because that feels like all it is. It's just, it's explaining a couple of
Exactly.
things we don't know the explanations for yet, while setting up for the meeting with Ruthven, while diving in and expanding or supporting cast along with our main two characters. And the way this show hard opens on the dance scene, and just the Nori looking at him,
What
just
is
the what the devil is love, and then cuts to its opening, and then we get
Yeah.
back to it later. I was dumbfounded. I fucking loved the hard open for this episode. I thought it was
Mhm.
amazing.
I like that they're at the
Also,
table
like-
eating like a cake, and like there's a really really serious conversation that Vanitas is just ruining
Mhm.
as per usual.
He also isn't paying attention for a good chunk of it because he's just like,
Yeah.
this is way
don't
too
like cake.
sweet. I don't
don't like
want
cake."
this.
Also, like,
No way, fix this.
I agree with you. This is a fantastic character episode. I think part of why it is because it kind of humanizes Vanitas in that he acknowledges that he is not a good person and no one should like him. And he recognizes that.
That's an important thing
Which-
to recognize about yourself.
I also appreciate
Yeah,
like
it's-
his two terms aren't like insanely hostile or dangerous. His two terms are
Yeah.
simply one, only my blood, which like there is probably a
So-
legitimate actual doctor reason he has for this, in that he believes she is being afflicted by some kind of curse.
And she'll get addicted to other
Mm.
blood. I mean, she is a
And
curse bearer.
it
we
is
covered that.
arguably safer for her to be only drinking his blood. But he's also
Yeah.
being a selfish asshole and wants to monopolize her.
Yeah,
And then the other
so-
thing is that she has to start calling him by his name because he hates not being called by.
Yeah, which,
being
like,
called
honestly,
human.
this was a, like, I even put that in my notes. I was like, okay, first condition, not totally fair. Like, not great.
Yeah.
Second condition is absolutely fair. That is totally something that is like, yeah, no, that's a fine thing to ask for. So,
But like you said, like there's small traces of humanizing Vanitas in this episode, and I think like the fact that that conversation with them in the alleyway is framed under the implication that Vanitas kind of knows she's not in full control on his curse slightly, and like
Mhm.
he's taking precautions to like. He's obviously still doing this to manipulate her because she's a very useful ally to him to have, as opposed to an enemy. But like,
mhm.
he's not doing it in the most vicious way now. It doesn't necessarily redeem any of his previous actions, but
No, but it doesn't make them any worse
Yeah.
either. And it puts him in a better light going forward.
I really like this episode, and it's at the top of my list simply because I think this is a great character episode, and I'll talk about why Sunny Boy isn't above it, and it was very difficult for me not to put Sunny Boy above it. I just think there's a couple of moments to get lost in Sunny Boys still, and I think that hurts the show overall. Whereas Vanitas is still a clean line path story,
Hmm.
which like also it is of note. Vanitas is slated for a second season. It's been slated since it started. I don't know if you know this. It's gonna be 2
I
core.
did not.
Yeah, it's gonna
I'm
be 2
in.
core. Which explains why they have time to do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna be with these characters for a long ass time.
And I'm A-okay with that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anything else we need to say. Like, nothing
we
much
said.
happened.
I don't know. if
Yeah,
you
I guess
guys
I
wanna
should
weigh
say
in.
something, being the person with has the lowest on their list.
I
I-
don't disagree.
Hearing you guys talk about it made me remember this was a really good episode. The only issue was I watched this on Monday and I fucking forgot.
Yeah.
Joe,
Like straight up,
That's why I
I
let them
actually
go.
forgot almost everything about this fucking episode.
Yeah, that's why I
then
just let them go.
you guys mentioned a cute episode, and I went, "Oh yeah, that happened and that happened." And John was really fucking adorable this episode, and this and that.
Dami's also great the entirety of this episode. When she goes and dances with John instead,
It's
it
very
is-
cute.
it's a
Yeah.
huge power play for one, and also great.
I like Domi. Domi's amazing.
I think she's such a well written character so
She's
far.
so good. Like-
My brain wants to say the reason I have remake above both realist and this is a recency thing, and it's more that I think I can remember more of what happened in realist this week. But also that's because not a ton happened, and I remember like one specific thing in it.
I
but
think
anyways.
shuffling these top 4 is perfectly reasonable,
Yeah.
and whatever order you put it in is probably entirely preference at this point.
mhm.
I have reasons why I think realist is in that 4th slot for me, but
It's so
One-
hard. So like this, like for me, the top, like Sunny Boy for me was the definitive number 1 this week for reasons we'll get to later.
Mhm.
And like we talked extensively about this while we were watching the show because it was insane.
We watched this episode,
but-
spent another 15 to 20 minutes looking back at the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
You're just
I
going back
paused.
and
I
looking at
paused a
scenes.
number of times and just like had to stop and think during the episode. But like for me, like the next three were so close and interchangeable because they're so vastly different in what each of these shows does. Like each of these shows does very specific things that are very good for the show. Between like Vanitas, Real Life, and Kingdom, and like even though I dropped Realist Hero down to 4 this week from I think I had it at 1 last week, maybe. Like it still could easily be like a number 1 show this week. Just depending on how I feel, but like
Yeah, you had it.
Vanitas is just always consistently good when I watch it.
I
It's
think
always got the comedy. Vanitas is always great. Like it looks so fucking beautiful. The entire show looks so goddamn good.
we'll talk.
um,
I think there are legitimately valid reasons to drop Realist low this week. In my
Yeah, I
opinion,
think Realist you
comparatively.
can drop a bit. It's an entertainment factor, right?
I don't think it
Um,
changes that any of these 4 are all in contention. Like
But
we're,
like the
we're
gap
gonna
between
have a
top
tough top
the,
3.
the gap between top 4 and the rest of the shows is
It's
very
huge.
significant this season. But it's also like not saying like the other 4 are necessarily terrible shows, like by any means. Like I wouldn't mind watching any show this season more after like last week, realistically. But yeah, so
I disagree with that, but that's only for
debatably,
one
yep.
specific
But
thing.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll
But
get to it.
I really
Um,
enjoyed what Vanitas did with its characters this week, like you're saying. Like it's doing a lot of interesting things with these characters. They're doing cool things. They are like being the characters we know them for at the same time. Um and just overall being like a really entertaining show, which is why I still put it at 2. Because there's nothing like I don't think there's anything bad about this week's show or episode.
The only thing
Like
that's a little confusing to me is it felt like we had implied that they were staying with Ruthven, and then the beginning of this episode seems like it implies that they're not, and that's the only thing that
they're just
didn't
kind of
track with
under his
me.
protect.
But
They're
yeah,
under
that seems to be
his
it.
name basically seems to be the thing, which I think I'm more happy about because
Yeah.
you let your characters walk around, which is so important. Like
Yeah.
let your characters be your characters. Don't restrict them. But yeah.
Speaking of
Um
them, they're
speaking-
really building Ruthven up, and I'm very
What-
excited to meet this man.
One thing you did not mention is that like they have drugs or medicine that resists this desire to drink
Yeah.
for curse bearers, which is what we had John mention she has, which means this world knows about these curse bearers and has for a while, and has potentially illicit or illegal drugs, or just you need money,
But
right?
also, Vanitas doesn't know about it, and he knows a lot about
he
the
knows a
vampire
lot about this
world,
world.
which to me
But
implies
he knows a
that
lot about
this
his
is...
restricted vampire world,
That's true.
which we also saw that vampires leave really bad hickeys that are permanent.
I want to know what
I did
Dami's
say
is gonna
that.
look like.
I want to know if he's got a hickey on both sides now after this week's episode. But basically they leave marks, which means that Vanitas's arm that we've seen previously is the mark from the actual Vanitas. That's why everyone's so surprised about it. It's a a hickey mark from the actual Vanitas drinking his blood.
Mhm.
And we also have Jean's now, which is a really, really cool rose design because roses are awesome. I like flowers.
Vanitas is gonna be
Vanitas
fucking
is gonna
broken
be
by the end
covered
of
in
this.
hickeys by the end of the show.
Oh my
just
God, he's
every
gonna
The more,
vampire.
covered.
the more hickeys you have, the stronger you are.
He's gonna do
Yeah.
the Yu-Gi-Oh bit where he pulls off his cape, and instead of 80 decks, it's gonna be 20 hickeys across his body.
I was gonna make a reference, but I can't say it.
You're just gonna see
Naruto.
Noe's right
I
on
was
it.
gonna say that, but I can't say any more than saying it's a Naruto thing.
You're gonna see Noe's down below.
So one side thing not about Vanitas, but I thought it was funny. Looking at the power rankings, so right before I set the power rankings in, I actually had life lessons above Dungeon of Black Company, and if I had left it, John and I's power rankings would be exactly the same.
Yeah, I also had Dungeon below Girlfriend, funny enough. Before that, I added a lot of things after watching Remake Our Life.
Yeah.
Because like, man, that
This
shows
was a tough week. I don't
It
know.
was a really
I don't know
tough
if it
week.
means it's gonna be a tough week for the vote. It really depends on if people are slaying one show or if we're kind of shooting at the
It is.
gallery, and we'll see.
I don't think it's a tough week for voting.
I think it's a
for
shooting
me.
gallery for one show,
So Michael,
but we'll see.
let's talk Black Company. It's the bottom of my list this week, which was
And it's 5 and
a
6 for everyone
decision.
else. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't know how to explain exactly why I enjoyed it so much. I like the lore stuff we got. I like all the fucking dumb parody bullshit we get.
Red pill, blue
I
pill.
like the red pill,
Yeah.
blue pill with the red door, blue door. One thing that we haven't really explored, but I think it was mentioned near the beginning, is that the world they live in, like the past, because he goes back to the past, is like modern day America or Japan, but like if slavery was still a thing, essentially, because the house that Shia lives in, I think it's her name, is
Yeah.
just like a modern day apartment, like what knows or what the fuck is his named? Ninomiya,
Ninomiya?
that's what it is.
Yeah.
That Ninomiya
Ninomiya,
owned
good.
in Japan, like a slightly less nice one, but it's funny. My brain goes, oh yeah, I forgot. This is modern world, but coal mines.
Modern coal mines.
I liked the idea that she was like overworking herself because she only had the group of her and Wanibe at this point.
And also the
Because
dungeons
Ninomiya
are
was
bad,
gone.
scarier.
Ninomiya is just real funny anytime he does some crazy bullshit where he just shouts because he's like, I have an answer. I like the
love-
idea that this person was in fact related to Rim. We have the small question with the one helper of Raizaha. Is she another one of the Majins, or is she just a person who happens to look exactly fucking like one of them? Because she just looks
That's
like an older
true.
version of
I
Rim, but
hadn't
with blonde hair.
considered that.
She has like a halo of horns. Or unless you're talking about the blonde one.
Yeah,
blonde
the
one.
blonde one with Raizaha.
And she
Yeah,
showed
she's
up a
cute.
couple of times and
Um,
is in the OP.
And is
which
in the
is
OP.
Interesting
Yeah.
to know. And we haven't really there's a lot of characters that are in this OP that we haven't seen, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
I just
wild.
like a lot of the lore stuff. I think the drinking bit was real funny. There were some bits that were kind of whatever in it, like they don't work here, so they're not being paid for. I was like, okay, understandable, whatever. And him screaming about that was kind of just whatever. But anytime Rim was not the center of the main focus of a scene, even when she was just doing something fucking hilarious the entire episode. I don't know. I think this episode was real fun, real funny. I enjoyed
I
it.
like her. She's
It
my
might
favorite.
also be a my show bias and a recency bias because I watched this one super recently. But yeah,
I just really enjoyed the. Wait, hold on. We have a problem. Okay, I know how to fix this. Bring me all the booze you can bring. I thought that was a good bit.
I enjoyed the
I
bit,
will deal with this later.
but it's such a strong whiplash for me to have Ninomiya be very active these past 3 episodes, and then just have him do essentially nothing in the end half of this episode, that it almost feels like we're killing time to start the next plot point. And like I get that we need to do it, and I enjoy having the characters back, but it just loses me at the end half of this episode, which is why it's on the bottom
Yeah,
for me. It feels like it built its potential really high, and then it did the thing the show was doing earlier, which was, oh, Ninomiya, you have an edge on the competition here. Well, we're gonna knock you down a couple pegs again because we can't let you have that. And in the earlier parts of the show, where it felt like that was to keep in check the fact that he's doing very scumbaggish things to get ahead, and like he can only do so much in like the realm of his abilities. At this point, it feels like he should be able to be working around that a little more, or at least or at least we should have gotten hit with the here's my actual plan. But like he never gets serious about it. Like the 6 times we get the bit of I do have a plan, and I wish we would
We
have
never talk about it.
given him something to make me feel that Ninomiya is going to be fine. Because like I did enjoy seeing his brain work. So when he's kind of just dicking around, it loses me a bit. I will say one of the things I really appreciate in this episode that I think is I like the way they do handle it is his return. I think the fact that everyone likes him being back because it's a good morale boost, but no one likes him is a
But no one
very
likes him is
hilarious
really
bit
good.
that also makes a lot of sense. Like the
Yeah, no, it fits because like everyone
Yeah.
fucking hated him before he left, but also no one wished death upon him.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to also build him up if he is going to be some kind of hero, because we get the implication that we all knew was coming, which was, of course he's not gonna just let everything go. His plan is just to be the person in power anyway.
I'm gonna be the one in power. I could do a better job
Which,
than that
like,
guy.
He does explain that, but again, immediately after explaining it, we get thrown with the, well, now the dungeon's harder. You have no upper hand. And it eats me a little. The show does too much walking forward, like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back for me after a bunch of episodes of letting Ninomiya kind of show
Work.
off and like succeed.
I
Yeah,
get
I
that.
agree.
I
I
do
think, like-
enjoy the entire first half of this episode. The bits are funny. The red door, blue door bit
The
is really
gun.
hilarious.
The gun.
The gun is
I-
great.
Can we talk about the
Yeah.
gun?
I see your dragon raise you gun.
I really appreciate the Majin being the Majin from the past and
Yeah.
and like because they hinted that there was
Explaining
a
how the
problem.
world works,
Like,
basically.
yeah, it's nice to have it here. I appreciate that this show just goes gung ho and is like, and yeah, Riser just has spaceships, space mechs.
They're kind of going like Gurren Lagann on it a bit, where they're just like, hey, yeah, time and space do not matter anymore.
This show gives me this show genre wise. I feel like comedy fantasy does not do the show enough justice because it feels like
No.
it should. If Defense Build could slap a mecha tag on it, this show should slap a mecha tag on it because like it's doing that same thing to me where it's like my genres they don't matter. I like.
What's a genre? I am all of the genres.
I
Yeah, it's
wish
like,
it
I'm just
just
gonna
went a little
vibe.
more into it.
This show's like it looks at other isekais and like that's it's other isekais like this is my genre, and Dungeon just goes, this is my genre. Like
Yeah, I like that one.
that's not my.
I think
genre.
I'm being really harsh on this show this week because I like this past couple episodes so much.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Uh,
Its past were
realistic-
really good.
Realistically, I don't think it's obviously not the worst show collectively in my brain, but it definitely didn't shine this week for me.
I think so. I agree with you that I wasn't a fan of some of the bits after the second, like after the halfway point. But also, I think the bits at the beginning and then the interspersed good stuff
Yeah.
in the second half made it better than, at the very least, girlfriend, and life lessons for me.
Which
Uh,
this is gonna be a real fun conversation to have because looking at my power ranking, it's very
Yeah.
clear that I didn't.
Sean doesn't hate
necessarily
girlfriend this
hate
week for some
girlfriend,
reason.
girlfriend this week, and I can't wait to talk about this. And I think this just comes to show that my enjoyment of comedy is very weird compared to the rest of the
It's-
podcast.
I respect like when it comes to comedy. For me, like consistently sticking to the same style of comedy isn't necessarily a good thing. But if you're gonna do that, make it good when it's great, or make it great when it's there, right?
We're gonna
and,
talk
like,
about the stuff that I really
we'll-
like.
we'll
in
get there- we'll get there
Girlfriend,
next.
And I think
Yeah.
I don't think it's a shocker once I explain it. I think
Yeah. And so, yeah, but like a lot of the comedy this season, I think is like shows doing what the show does well when it's funny.
it
Like
feels very weird
every show
that
has their own way of funny.
of our bottom 4, 3 of them are comedies. I told Michael.
I mean,
on
Comedy's just hard.
on a normal season, it feels like this is the point where we have to shoot one of the comedies, but I understand why that's not necessarily the
The-
thought in the head right now.
The big thing about me with comedy that is like comedy relies a lot on like if you're gonna repeat a gag, you need to see it multiple times. And like weekly anime, you don't get to see it multiple times. You see it once a week, right? And you go,
Mhm.
oh, right, that did happen. That is kind of funny. They called back to that. Like, whereas like a lot of the shows we're watching now, it's like, okay, they're doing something different to keep you interested week to week, which is
Yeah.
good. But like, I think that's part of the reason why you like it's hard to do comedy and anime in like a seasonal podcast
Yeah.
because like we're watching it week to week, whereas like comedy I feel like does best when you can binge it and you can just sit down and laugh for a couple hours, you know?
Yeah, I
But-
agree with that.
I have something I'm going to talk about more so with life lessons and shut the fuck up. You didn't even
I didn't say
it.
anything,
You didn't
Sean.
have to say it. That joke doesn't require the noise anymore.
Oh, did you do the
Yeah.
I just didn't.
yeah.
I think I'll talk about it. Before we get to that, hey Dash,
What's up?
it's girlfriend.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Holy
I
fuck.
We've
I guess
trimmed
I
a
could
lot
follow
of the
that.
middle back.
Yeah. So I get to talk in the first half of the podcast this time now. It's great. Girlfriend for me was just like the reason why it's so high on my list usually. And why originally I had it at like 5, I believe, and this time I put it down to 7. Because I made it up like any of those 3 shows and different. Like for me, like the comedy this week, like Life Lessons didn't make me laugh the most, but it made me laugh the hardest when it did. Girlfriend made me laugh a lot, and then like Dungeon was just like it's a different genre, so it's hard to rate. I wanted to make Sean happy, so I put Dungeon a little bit higher than Girlfriend for once, and then he didn't. So like,
Like I
whenever
said,
I try to,
I can-
whenever I like whenever I think something about Sean and his rankings, he completely usurps it. So I should just like stick with what I do. But for me, Girlfriend is pretty funny this week. I think Saki's mom is now the best character in the show.
Mhm.
She
And she's the
elevates
best girl
this
because
episode
she-
immensely for me. Let me tell you
exactly.
that.
She's the best girl, mainly because she's the only one that's legal. But Saki's mom is excellent. Great, best wingman at like JP. I thought the bunny girl scene was simultaneously painful to watch, but also fucking hilarious to me at the same time. And speaking of horny, in my notes, the Sounds of War approach as the show went from playful to fetish horny really fast. Like it went from playful funny to like playful horny to horny to horny playful. Like it's touching all the bases. I think it was funny, the bits with like the bunny girl, and it's like, oh wait, I could do bunny girl. I shit on bunny girl. I could do maid. Do you like maids? I could do maid. Like I think that was cute. And I agree with Sean in a previous point he made. I think they had a lot more to do with these two girls than we gave it credit for. Like I don't think we needed the new introduction. I like that. I like that it focused back on our main two casts this episode. But yeah, I think it was funny. It was cute.
Yeah, I said it last week and the week before. I wasn't too happy with the quick introduction of the third character, and a point we actually a very relevant point that got brought up on the other side of the podcast, which words leaving my mouth. They mentioned, because the episode we finished is episode 4, where they start to introduce the third character, and I think it was Jokage was like, "What do you do for the rest of the show if episode 4 you introduce the third girl? You have 12 episodes to fill." And I think that was kind of a worry that was in my head, was you're going too fast. Spend some more time with the characters we have. And this episode backs up. We've solved the immediate problem. And then we get to spend time with Saki and Nagisa. And while I don't still inherently like Saki, there are, especially the fact that this episode falls back on her, like, I can't do anything personality, which really I don't think is a useful trope or trait for a tsundere to have.
I think it's interesting that she feels super pressured.
Yeah, I
right.
think the way that it allows her to
Is that
bounce
way-
off
okay,
her
okay.
mom as a character is great, and that everything that happens from there is, while again crosses a little bit of an uncomfortable line sometimes with the framing of the shots.
Mhm.
I do think I do still think the photography sound effect when he stares at them is kind of funny to a degree. Like it got me the first time. It's a little invasive this time.
So like I get it. I get the camera effect though, because like that's literally how teenage boy
Yeah.
writing works.
Like
It's
I
like art,
understand it.
same for the spank bang.
I don't hate it, but there are a couple of shots with the bunny girl outfit that are a little too.
Little
What,
too
you mean,
illegal,
like,
we'll
like-
say.
You mean you don't want to see Saki literally sitting on the viewpoint?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I respect when they don't always go for
I-
it though. Like they have a lot of those moments, but I mean it's an Ichiharu show. What do you expect?
I think
Sometimes,
then
but
the,
like they also don't go for all the low hanging fruit, which I think is
Yeah.
a big thing.
I think then the build off of the bunny girl scene to the maid outfit scene is also really good. I think it does something to Nagisa's character that I wasn't expecting to have, which is her being. I mean, like we always knew she was
being
willing
very
to
competitive.
do whatever, but she's like competitive. She's not like as passive as it seems like she would have been in the scenario. And while I'm not the biggest fan of the ending of necessarily any of the gags that come with Rika as a character, I mean, like, I understand why it's there, and I think the bit where she walks down the staircase and then breaks down in admiration and Saki's just above her, staring brutally, just like, "You're a fucking bitch, get away from my guy," is really funny. So overall, this episode hit more comedy for me, and I think it's because the comedy felt more character-focused for it, and felt like it did what I wanted with the characters that I asked for. So
I like Milka having these rose tinted glasses hitting very hard. I think it's really funny
I
for her
do
character.
enjoy that framing. I
Mhm.
think it's...
I like the framing of like, oh fuck, she's in love with him. Fuck, we gotta stop this. Like, and then they're sticking with that until like it actually happens, right? I think that's cool. I like the I just like the characters sticking to being the characters they are and not just trying to like be the other characters, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not trying to one up them in the ways the other characters are good. They're trying to one up them in their own ways.
Mhm.
And I think that's healthy for the show. I think yeah, I think
What
I'm
this-
excited for
What
where
this
this is going
episode
because it's
does
funny.
for me is prevent Girlfriend from being the only show I slay this week, and instead open Smith
Let's
to go,
go.
yeah, I'll just shoot a bunch of shit this week, because you know what? I may have liked
Throw darts at a
Girlfriend
wall.
this week, but I might not like it next week.
But I probably won't next
and
week.
and that's kind of how I feel with my whole bottom 4, maybe 5,
I think that's fair.
4 for sure.
There's a lot of it's a tough like bottom 4 honestly, like
Mhm.
for most of them.
But we still have
And
I think, like,
Girlfriend to
I
talk.
think girlfriend made me laugh like the most this week, just overall. Which is why like I
It
think
got
if I
the
had to re-rank it
loudest
again,
laughs
it'd
out
probably
of
go to
me.
6. For me, Life Lessons always gets the loudest laughs, just because like when Life Lessons is funny, holy fuck is that show
really
funny?
fucking funny.
Holy fuck is it funny? But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you enjoyed it a bit more. What do you guys think about Girlfriend
I
this
also
week?
didn't have it on times 2 speed this week.
Let's go.
Wow,
Because
that's a big step. That's a round of applause, guys.
And I was like,
Round
you know
of
what? I don't
applause.
think I need it, and it never made me feel like I needed it.
It's like a
So,
drug
like,
to you.
I really liked this episode, just because like there were some things like I have in my notes there's a point it's like when they're doing the Nagisa bit, they're like doing the Nagisa bit and then there's just a cut mid sentence to Saki again. And that got me. I forget what the actual like the line is that they're saying and like who's saying it, but I just remember there is a cut mid sentence, and I love when shows do that because it's always fucking hilarious to me.
I like when shows do that and they don't just do it in the subtitles. Like
Yeah.
like subtitle games were on point this week, by the way. For
Yes.
like for illegal subs and actual subs, they were on fucking point this week. Whoever did those.
So like I really enjoyed the bit with Saki's mom because Saki's mom was just fucking hilarious. And then also like I really enjoyed the fact that like Milika actually had the issue of like, why do I like this guy? Like I shouldn't and I don't want to, but like
Bad
I
for my
do.
health.
Also, oh no, not the roof again. Bad things happen on the roof.
Mhm.
Also,
I can't wait for the bench to appear. That's my
Right.
big-
Oh
Dangerous.
no.
That's the 4th girl.
Please.
She's bench.
The 4th
Um,
girl is Bench Kun.
Can I sit you down and talk to you on this bench? Uh-oh.
it also like, so it also had that like the thing of switching between what Milika is saying to Naoya and what she is thinking. And that is a very good actual
Good
like
bit.
it's a good like progression thing because it gives you the actual like in-depth thoughts of the character while not taking like the time to give them a self monologue. Also the music was really good this week for this show, which it actually always is. It's just it was more noticeable this week. But yeah, no, like I think this was like good for Saki, not so much for Nagisa, just because Nagisa is gonna be the same every time. And it was good for Milika because Milika got the why the fuck do I like him? No, I do. We're just gonna go in on it and say, yeah, no, I love him. Also, it was the acknowledgement of like, yeah, no, I know that I'm being a titty streamer and I know I'm using my boobs for clickbait, but like it's what's making me money. I am just doing the correct thing for me right now. I
I'm
don't
just
like
on Twitch. It's fine.
I
Yeah.
do partially appreciate the Naoya line, not because it's a good line, but because like it is what a man like him, given his character, would say, which is, "You're not just streaming with your tits. That's not the
Yeah.
reason you're doing it."
yeah, it's great.
He is an idiot. He would say that. I will say, this episode does still make me want more about these characters because I forgot from episode like what 2 or 3 that Saki plays basketball. Why can't we
I
dive
didn't.
into her character background?
Because we have to wait to
Yeah.
introduce
Yeah,
the other
Yeah,
girl.
that's gonna be connected to the 4th character or 4th girl because she's the
She's her
teammate.
friend. Yeah.
I enjoyed a lot of stuff this episode. I think the reason in my brain why this went over life lessons that I could particularly remember like actual gags from this episode. By that I mean Saki's mom. I like the stuff we have with like Milika on the roof. I like her whole thing where she's like, you saying like you understanding like that yes, though I may just be a titty streamer, I'm putting a lot of work into it, and she's like very flattered that he thought that like understands that she's putting a lot of work. I enjoyed that bit because it shows like it more than just like a more actual reason for her liking him than just, wow, he's a two-timer that understands he's a scumbag for being a two-timer. Wow, I want to join in on that shit.
Yeah, no, it's like no, he defended me to my dad.
I
Like,
really
he,
like the line, and I don't know what it is, but it makes me laugh. Of "You saved me from dad."
yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's a line. That's a line
that
we
is,
had.
that is in fact the line we had.
Yeah, this episode was fun. I think that the thing with this and the reason why I have it under Dungeon might be a recency bias thing, and that I just remembered more of Dungeon's jokes because I watched it yesterday or whatever, and I watched this one a while ago. But
I also agree with that. I think that's my reason why it's below dungeon and uh I don't even
Life
remember
Life
my own
lessons.
power rating.
Is it life lessons or?
do you have
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
life
below
it's
life
life
lessons?
lessons in
lessons.
dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wait, it
so
was a solid episode. It got some good memes.
Mason, I hope you like this pattern, guys, because I have good news for you. Most likely, I'm never talking about a show again after this week. So Mason, here you go. It's your show again. So let's talk
Oh,
about
what do you
Realist
mean? There's
Hero.
no way we
Yeah.
vote off all your
So
shows.
so we got some more lore. We talked about the magic system now. So there's 6 elements. It's fire, water, earth, wind, light, and darkness. All of them mean something. Like, or air magic is for the Air Force. Fire magic is for the Army. Water magic is for the Navy.
Navy.
The Earth magic is for the Forbidden Army that guards the capital, and they also use it for civil engineering. Light is for healers, and they're interspersed between all of the factions. And then darkness is just the umbrella term for
It's the
shit that doesn't fall in.
it's the catch-all. This isn't the only
I
fantasy show I've seen that's done this, and I always like when they do because it's that idea of like you don't know how to explain this stuff, so you just you throw it in one category and leave it.
I like
sort it
the
out.
idea of a catch-all. I just don't like calling it darkness.
Yeah,
I think that's a weird. I like how like Nen and Hunter x Hunter uses the specialist term
yeah, I
for the
agree.
as the catch-all.
I think it's just a
So-
distinction of like you don't understand it, so it falls into the
Yeah.
unknown, so it
It's-
gets that
yeah, it's-
darkness label.
It's
Mhm.
just like
Which-
darkness is normally the opposite of light, but it doesn't feel like the opposite of
I
light.
like that.
with the way
I like that
they're
it's a
portraying it.
rarity thing in this show, though. I like that it's
Yeah.
like it's not. It's
Yeah.
not that like we don't like know about it. Like it exists. It's just like it's so rare and it's so uncommon and varied types of magic that it's like it doesn't really fit the mold that we know.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna throw it in its own isolated kind of
Mhm.
the catch-all, like you said.
We also got Soma leveling his amiibo to 50 and then sending it into
Best-
dungeons.
Best part of this episode.
It was so good. We got.
I like that the
we
fucking
got-
girl's like falling for the thing, and he's
or
like,
it's a fucking mascot character that doesn't say a single fucking word.
like that he's just playing a game, basically.
And also that really showed us that shared consciousness is actually a really broken magic power.
But
When
you
you
also
think about
don't
it.
need to have consciousness for it. Is the thing.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can just be like, all right, hope that works out.
Yep.
I'll check
and
back
like
later.
if it doesn't, oh well, I can make a new one. Also, we got more of like Soma doing king things where he's explaining how the economy works to Lycia, which explaining supply and demand should not be this long, I feel, but like
Yeah.
because it literally took them like 5 minutes to explain supply and demand, which is a very easily understandable economic concept. But whatever. We also got them explaining how like a port town is a really big boost to the economy because turns out when everyone has to go through there to get to where they're going and they have to stop there for supplies, that is a good way to get your country to make a fuck ton of money. Also, we got him explaining how earthquakes work to people who don't, or explaining how earthquakes and tsunamis work to people who don't know what faults are. I'm not gonna lie. When they first started talking about it, I thought there was going to be a fucking kraken that he was going to tame and make
Yeah.
guard the port. I thought, and I was like, that would have been sick. But also, it makes way more sense that it's just a tsunami. And also, Lycia is falling for him even harder.
I like that scene. That scene was really, 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 really cute,
It-
though.
To me, it redeems the end half of this episode.
Mhm.
Because I think this drags a bit here when they're doing the whole port town, and I understand that we're doing it now because you have to set it up for when it's important in like 3 episodes from now, when the construction's completed without a hitch anymore, and they're gonna start using it, and that's gonna
Mhm.
open up maybe connections to the Navy. But like also, you left us on a huge cliffhanger, and we have absolutely no indication of what it was,
Yeah.
and I would have liked a little bit of that sprinkled in. And if it wasn't for the fact that I really enjoyed the beginning part of this episode where he's experimenting, we get the explanation of the magic. The fact that the explanation of the magic flows so well into what's happening in the episode, it just feels like there was a minute where I went, "Did I miss an episode?" I was a little worried that I did, and I was
Mhm.
watching like episode 8 instead of 7. So I'm excited to get kind of back on it, and that's really the only reason this dipped down the floor to me, is that like it felt like they gave us something really important, and we're just taking some time away from it because we have to set up something else for later, which is fine. But you could have cut maybe like 3 minutes off the supply and demand, and maybe like a
Mhm.
little bit off the talking of the port city to give me like a lead into next episode in relation to like by the way, about that message you got from my father. What was it? What are we doing about anything?
What was the game
Yeah.
plan?
Anything.
For sure, for sure.
This is a fine episode. Just wasn't anything great from what we like, compared to like what we've seen from this show. Lots of talking. I like the idea that folk tales are gonna be wrong. That's how folk tales work.
But
It's made up
There-
things based on what people think. Anyone who was hit by one of these tsunamis would be dead. So they wouldn't be able to actually say, "Hey, the water came up and destroyed our village," because they are currently not in existence anymore.
Mhm.
So what they'd see is, oh, water goes up and village go away. What would cause that? Monsters, because that's how this world works.
Odd.
Mhm.
And
God.
it makes sense.
Mhm.
I think another odd question I have about this episode is they explain what elemental powers goes to what army, but Lycia uses water.
No, doesn't she use wind?
Either
used
way,
wind.
either
She
way,
used
she's
wind.
under Duke
Well, yeah.
Carmine. But no,
Okay,
yeah,
no,
no.
no, I
She was with the army because she's a part of the royalty. That's why.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why, because she was.
And
it
it's
was
the
just
closest to home.
no, but she uses ice because she does the icicles, whereas
She also
or Dark Elf uses. the
she
wind.
Dark Elf uses wind.
I
Dark
thought
Elf.
Dark Elf
Dark-
uses wind.
I
Oh.
think you're right. She used
Dark
water.
Elf
I
uses
remember
wind.
it was ice and wind were the
Because the
elements.
wind
Then she
comes
uses-
straight
Lycia
out of
uses
her
ice
blade.
then.
The ice
Lycia
spikes
uses ice
go
then.
up. It was just confusing for a minute because I was like, shouldn't she have fire?
Yeah,
No,
no,
no.
it was they didn't exactly explain it, but they did say when she was coming back that
Yeah.
Carmine was literally less than a day away from the kingdom.
Mhm.
And also it kind of makes sense too because the army is going to be the most staffed out of
Yeah.
anything, and that means it's the safest place. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I also do find it kind of weird that it's like this branch of the military completely controls this magic. No one else is allowed to touch it. It feels like it's the way they describe it. I'm like, wait, that just makes the Navy fucking broken, because water just has an elemental advantage over like all of them, and fire is just bad against all 3 of the others. Because wind can just disperse fire, water does water things, and dirt can put out fires.
I think you always
Mhm.
have to remember that in the fantasy setting, it's not just like using it; it's like the amount of power or
Yeah.
usually wind gets associated with mobility, water gets associated with like
Well-
control and like
it also makes sense that wind is under the Air Force because it's
mean,
like,
yeah.
oh, we can make just the wyverns fly faster.
yeah. Same thing
Yeah.
with like the water being for the Navy. They can also speed up their travel, and like just the destructive power fire has significantly, and the defensive power Earth has for being in. Like it all makes sense.
Yeah, I just find it weird that it's like all of the Earthbenders are part of the Dark Army, which is not how it actually feels like. But that's what they kind of make it seem like with the way they describe it.
It's probably expertise go
Yeah, it's
predominantly,
like
and
Yeah.
you get a couple.
you're gonna have it makes sense. It would make sense, I think, and I think they're probably going to explain it more once we get more into the military branches. But I think what it's more leaning towards is like it's a predominantly this
Yeah.
type, but there's still other ones interspersed in there for like second opinions and
Yeah.
also for the random shit that they need.
Yeah.
I do really like that they're also doing like, hey, Earth is for Forbidden Army simply because it is a defensive one, which is the whole point, and also it's really good for civil engineering.
Yep.
I enjoy that quite a bit.
And the show acknowledges that, like, it's also in a way they've written it to benefit the main character, because he basically flat out says, "Bandit, I get lucky that we have Earth, because that's helping me out a shit ton." And like, it's better to just acknowledge it than ignore that fact and act like it was all natural, because like, you can admit that your writing is written well to help you develop a plot point.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Overall, I think this showed us a lot of good things. I think I'm excited to watch more of it as usual. I'm
Mm.
bought a fuck ton of the manga or light novels. So I hope it reads well.
So,
And
so
yeah,
John,
so me
Life lessons.
comedy. Yeah. So life lessons this week again, as per usual, has really weird bits. The kids continue to be the best in the entire show. What was the line, Mason? Please remind me.
the chains are also known as shackles, which bind adults.
I wanted
That's the
to
one.
use it and I couldn't find it. I was
Right at the
skipping
start.
through
It's right
it
at the
and
start.
I couldn't get it to pop up where I was like, "Oh, there's the kids," and that's why I missed it. That line killed me
Oh
because
my
the
god.
implications
So
it
good.
has that like they're slowly corrupting these kids and parents' minds with their.
The other one that showed up was what does One-san live for? I'm not at liberty to talk about that.
That's the one. Oh my god. I like the why did the lion the longhorn beetle got really fucking heavy really fast.
He literally got a fucking JoJo's palette swap.
I love
Like,
Uramichi. He's so good. Like Uramichi in any of the scenes, just like you're just watching him for like the little cracks in his fucking mental. We have Iketeru Onisan, our male singer Onisan, who's just slowly also deteriorating with his own like performance ability. And I also like the things that they talk about, like we're bound by responsibility to apologize, even when we're not at fault when we're adults. So even when it's not your fault, you still apologize anyways and move on.
That seems adorable with
Just
the
to
kids.
create no issues. But yeah, the kids just continue to kill this show. I also like was this one where we had the retreat as well at the end?
no, that was
That's
2
okay.
episodes ago, or
Yeah,
last
that's the
episode.
last job. Yeah.
It's-
The end of this one
really good.
is the
The Shiso
the
bit.
We give a little
the
scene, yeah.
Shiso bit.
She's so
Also,
Yeah.
this episode also had the random dick joke, and it came out of nowhere, and it was very like
yeah. After like 2
It was
episodes not
good.
having the dick joke.
No, they had it last episode. It's just every time you're never expecting when they do it because it's always a pun that doesn't exactly make sense for us
mhm.
sometimes, and it's just like
Which is
there
why
it is.
I'm glad I kind of understand what that word is in Japanese and why it's funny.
We're
Because
also forgetting that
um,
he returns again. We can never escape him. He is truly omnipresent in
Nanami.
every show. Nanami's just here again.
Na-
Just
He is
God.
he is the director,
Director.
which on set is God. So
We
he
do-
always plays God.
We
I
do
like how
have
you
an
and Sean
amendment
put the
to
same
make.
pieces together there.
We do have an
No,
amendment to make.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't have an amendment to make because in Sunny Boy, dog is God
No,
backwards.
I was gonna say we have to just state that fact. I was going to do
Okay.
that too, but we'll get to that when we get to that. That's its own
Oh.
bag of worms.
So, like, to
I
be
like
fair
this
though, I'll talk about that when we get to Sunny Boy as well.
This
Sure.
episode is okay.
It's good.
There were bits in
Yeah.
it that I really liked. The
Fine.
shackle bit literally had me dying.
Mhm.
I find the argument bit between I think it's just because Iketeru and his sister don't click with me as characters that I enjoy watching on screen.
Yeah,
Like their empty
same.
head only thinks of rice ball, and their terrifying dog do not do anything for me in terms of the comedy aspect. But the bit with the kids we get out of it, to me highlights how good our main character is. Of both like he's in this job for a reason. He's actually really good with the kids, but also he's
Mhm.
slowly corrupting their brains, which I think is amazing.
He's also
Yeah.
losing his fucking mind.
I had a realization this episode, and that is that I think I like life lessons more than I thought, because I think my subconscious just blocked the fact that I enjoy this kind of comedy a lot, like the very
The
nonsensical,
dark humor.
like well that, but also like the very nonsensical side that life lessons like taps into that gets really weird sometimes. and it reminds me that I grew up watching Bobobo. And this is like a difference
That'll do
between
it.
this is a difference
Yup.
between like what you were saying, Dodge, where you're like, it's hard to like comedy watching it week by week. I watched Bobobo air weekly on Toonami. I was very upset with the way Toonami treated airing the ending of its show. But I was someone who enjoyed comedy on a week by week basis, and in that regard, Life Lessons is doing the right things. I just think it's taken me a while to warm up and realize that I do like its comedy.
Let's go.
I think the thing with this show,
Just like
I
just
not-
like just like
This
just
should,
like our main.
this should probably
sorry.
be higher. This should probably be at
D-
6.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but just like Uramichi Onisan, the show just slowly wears you down to the
Yeah.
point where you break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing with this show is that I really like jokes that are centered around Uramichi, and I think
Mhm.
Utano's a very well written actual character. I think the other three like main cast members are really unfunny when they're not with the other two big characters. I think Ikatero alone is fucking dumb. I hate any joke that's centered around him. The dick jokes are always based on other characters, and that's why they're funny.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's always like Uramichi intentionally saying dick jokes to him. And I think Usao and Kuma or whatever, can't remember their fucking names, are only funny because Uramichi makes funny jokes with them. And it's the only reason Usao is funny is because Uramichi beats the shit out of him half the time. And that's
Mhm.
funny.
I will also say
Comedy.
this is another one of those shows where its opening shows a lot of characters we haven't met yet.
Also,
And
it's
we're
open
like halfway
slaps, but
through. Well, yes.
also it's ED slaps. It doesn't fit the show at all. That's the best
I
part.
really appreciate this show has a style to it that it taps into usually at the end of episodes, which is like the rugged, like gruff,
Serious,
like
like work
serious
life.
style it has. Like the scene in the opening where it's just it cuts to Uramichi smoking. I don't know what it is with that scene that I'm just like,
Yeah.
damn, yeah, that's a
These are
real
cool.
that's
Okay,
a real
what is with
ass
smoking
scene.
and anime? Like
It
like
seems
smoking,
like he's
I
out of like Kaiji or like Monster.
Yeah,
Like that,
that's
it
really
gives me
good.
those vibes.
So for me, smoking in anime, like smoking in real life, is like the biggest turnoff of anything in terms of like relationships and anything like that. But in anime, for some reason, it looks so fucking cool, and I hate it.
Because it's always the
hate
the
it.
best characters that are smokers.
Thanks, Naruto.
Or the best girls.
Thanks,
Thanks,
One Piece.
thanks teacher, from
Smoker's
Oregairu's
garbage.
Nephew.
What?
Smoker's garbage. He's the biggest smoker in One
I'm-
Piece.
Fuck off! I'm talking about Sanji, and you got
I
me.
know
Mason-
you are.
Mason,
But he said
without-
smoker, and my brain thought a smoker. And I was
Mason,
like,
Sure,
oh.
smoker?
without spoiling anything, as you go into Shippuden, keep in mind that they fixed this. They didn't make this mistake. But original Naruto, Asuma's cigarettes are replaced with like the typical like candy, like lollipop. Just keep that in mind as you go through Shippuden, and you think about how important the fact that Asuma smokes is. Because that gets to be a very important
Oh my
plot point for his
God.
character.
Oh
and
my
think about how
God.
dangerously close the dub gets to screwing things up in Shippuden. Just keep it in mind. Just keep it in mind, because there are multiple important scenes
I know
around
exactly
the
what you're talking
entire
about.
cast
I know
that
exactly what you're
relate
talking
to
about.
the fact that Asuma smokes.
I'm scared.
You don't have to be. You can appreciate it when you
No.
realize it.
You do. You do. Let me tell you, you really do. You really do.
So, do we have anything else to say about life lessons?
Life
I
lesson's
think-
good.
I'm good. I think the show's great.
Let's open
Okay.
up this can of worms, huh? So we get a very particular scene in this episode which we have to talk about, where or poor swimming boy gets fucking donked in the water and goes to rest, and everyone talks about how they're worried about him, and they all go to check on him in the room they're sleeping together, and Bobby notices he's written on the board that he's sorry, and immediately Bobby jumps to the world's largest leap in conclusion, which is that he once heard Boy talk about how he's very depressed, and if he didn't have the water polo team, he doesn't know if he would be alive anymore, to which the team goes and chases after him, and the show presents it as if he is literally going to hang himself. And we have to recognize we don't need this scene, and it's not well executed.
No.
I'll make a
Suicide
statement. It's
jokes
very
aren't
poorly
funny.
done.
I appreciate that. I don't think it's portrayed super as a humor bit. I think it could be a lot worse. That, however,
The issue that at
should
the
not
end they
be,
try to turn it to a humor bit.
that,
That's
however,
They
the
go,
should
issue.
not
"Oh
be.
look,
Yeah.
ha! I was hanging up the clothes.
The
The
problem
clothesline
is,
fell."
once you've gotten yourself to that scene where they rush in on, where Minato rushes in on him, there's no good way to clean that up as the misunderstanding without it turning into a semi-humor bit, and that's the problem innately with doing that. And I don't
Yeah,
even know
they
if I would
shouldn't
have
have
liked
done
it if they made it even a serious scene. I don't know if that was, if this subject matter was needed here in this show.
So if they had been focusing on the drama aspect of this show more and then they went with a serious bit to this, I would have been like, okay, I'm fine with this because that's an actual thing that should be talked about in high school age kids because that
Yeah.
is an issue a lot of kids struggle with. However, it has not gone into like the actual drama bit that hard where I would be fine with them doing that. And also, they didn't do it in the first place. They kind of played it for laughs, and that is not okay with me in the slightest. Like I was in call with Michael and John, and I was actively like almost screaming.
I was very
Yep.
upset. I was
so
very
mad
upset
about
when I watched this because I realized what they were going to do with it, and I don't know if I was more afraid of if it was going to be a serious moment or if it was going to be a joke. I don't know which because it's difficult in that moment when you realize what the section of that episode's going to be on how to even react to it.
Mhm.
Like I really did not know what direction to go. Which is and I think this is a huge shame because I think overall the rest of this episode is really good, in my opinion. I think the time skip's needed. Uh, it's something to get work done on. I wish the show had written a way for him to like be a manager or be something that isn't a player and for them to have other options available because
Yeah.
man, you can't fix his problems. And I think the best part of this episode is where they are talking about how to boost his confidence and we see or Prime Swimmer Boy in the pool ignoring them, and then when they get ready to get back in the pool, he's like, okay, so you're not actually going to do this. I'm not going to let you do this. You're fucking assholes for even thinking about doing this. This isn't going to help him. I understand why, but no. I think that's a really good moment for him. I also don't innately dislike the reasoning for why he joins the team. I think the idea that he's trying to make friends and was dared to go do it and winds up liking it, I think it works really well. Again, I just think it would be stronger if you let the kid have an out to not have to try to match up with the rest of this team that there should be no realistic way he's going to catch up to.
So
Every show
I-
needs a good bench warm character.
So I think it would have been fine if, like you said, they had the manager aspect, but also they had the out of no, he's training on his own in addition because that they literally showed that where he's
Yeah.
running in the mornings for endurance training, which shows us that he actually does care and he does want to get better. So give him the out of okay, manager, but
Let him work, let
you
him come back
let him
later.
work. Come back later, and when you're strong enough and you can actually beat out someone on the team, then you actually are on the team because that would have been much better for his character arc. Also, can we just talk about the fact that the way that they're explaining that he is getting better at shooting is the fucking Dragon Ball Z school power scaling?
Now, we also I had to look this up. There is
That actually does work a little bit in
is
sports.
technically an argument that
science
the
behind it.
screaming
I-
does help you. However, they're in the water, which I argue shouldn't help here because he doesn't have good stamina. So this isn't
So-
a beneficial thing to him in my mind.
So as someone who's played water polo, you're keeping your mouth closed unless you're shouting to who you're passing to.
You
Because
don't
if
water
you-
splash in
because-
it.
Because there's a lot of water splashing around because people are fucking rough. And also, as we saw in the last episode where Homeboy got fucking yanked under the water, that's going to happen a lot. Like a lot. So there's going to be a point where he's shouting, and as he's throwing, someone is going to yank him under, and he is going to drown for a bit.
And the show's also very clearly setting us up for they're going to beat the team that we've established. They're going to barely beat the team that we've established isn't great, and then they're going to get absolutely stomped by the other team. in
Yep.
this 3-team
It
round.
doesn't
Also,
even
by the
feel
way,
right for them to
Can
beat
we
this
talk
other
about
team.
how stupid this tournament format is? By the
Mhm.
way,
They're a very small water
okay,
polo
it's
district.
a 3-team round robin.
You do them all on
One
the same
team's
day.
just gonna get to play on full rest. Have fun. Like, if that score isn't like 86-2, like between those two schools, no. Like I'm sorry, like that's like saying like you have a tournament like oh man, like it's just such a bad tournament design. It's so
very
like
convenient they get the
it's
middle
so
rest
dangerous.
as well.
Like just add another school into the mix. It doesn't matter.
A good sports anime would make them the team that doesn't get the rest either, because
Here's the thing.
it's a
Don't make it a
challenge for them.
here's the
I
problem.
thought our
Nope.
team didn't. I thought our team
Nope.
gets
No,
first and second game.
They play first
They get
and
first
third.
and third. Here's the thing.
Oh,
I misunderstood that
fine
too.
to do this.
I thought they got first second.
No.
Yeah, I
They're
thought so
first
too.
third. They because they it's one of the captain says, "Oh, so they'll be tired when they play us," and then he goes, "No, they play multiple. They practice for multiple games in a row, like so they get the rest period, which still doesn't matter, right? They're still just a worse team overall, but they're going to use that as an excuse to give them a chance, and I'm not a fan of that. But like, the thing is, just like this tournament would never happen. Like in my opinion, like there would have to be 4 schools. There just has to be because or 2 days.
Or
Because
simply
it just doesn't make
you
sense.
would be extending the region to be a much larger tournament. I feel like, as opposed to keeping it.
Just make it an actual
four.
4 tournament where like elimination, best of 1. Like
Yeah, just don't.
I understand
don't
that
do a
like
round.
there might
the
not be
logistics
enough
of this sounds
teams,
terrible.
but I feel like at some point you broaden your district to be more than.
At some point, you
3.
made a bad choice in organizing this tournament, and you should have fucking done better.
It definitely feels like they didn't want to write more teams.
Yep.
Because
You
they're
could
already
just make
pushing
a nobody
the
school.
boundaries.
That's what every show does. Like,
Well, that's the thing.
just
We already have kind of the nobody school, and it's
our main cast.
it's true, but
No, because there's a 4th school. We have no fucking idea who they are.
no.
We focus. We have our school. We have the fucking 3 Musketeers on that other group.
We have the
And
Three
then-
Musketeers. We have the Shiratori Zao of this school of this show.
Like my brain's like we have our
It's just
school.
those 3.
We have the 3 chuckle fucks over in the shitty team
It's
where
just
they
the 3
play the
schools,
middle
Milos.
schoolers, and then they have the big team.
Yeah.
Then,
Unless you count the
and now
middle
there's a
school.
4th.
No.
There's not. There has to be.
No, the
No,
other
it's-
team's the
Oh.
big
If
team.
if you're counting the middle schoolers, yes.
No.
There's 4
there's
teams.
there's only 3 teams.
Yeah.
That's
That
why
hurts
it's an
me even
issue.
more.
I
Just
think
write a 4th rando team that doesn't matter.
That's literally what I said. Like,
Yeah.
just
think-
add
I
an
thought they had a
arbitrary
4th
fourth
rando team.
Nope.
I didn't realize they just didn't.
I think the stuff
Oh
we
my
get in this
God.
episode isn't outside of the scene we've talked about isn't necessarily a hindrance to the show any further. I just think that the show's in a point where it needs so much work to get out of it that I just don't think it's likely it's going to. Which I think is a fair assessment to make at this point.
Like, I'm just gonna tell you right now, this show lost me as soon as it went with a fucking suicide plot.
Which is fair.
Which is
Like-
more than valid in my opinion.
Like, I am
show has to
okay.
Earn it.
It has to earn it. It has to earn.
One
it.
like
And the
Wonder
show-
Egg, say what you will about its ending, Wonder Egg earned the topics it covered.
It
in
earned
the
being
show.
interested.
Yeah, it earned talking about suicide because that's what the show was about.
That was the whole point.
and it never strayed away from the fact that suicide is very brutal and it's awful. It is not something to glorify or make a joke out of.
This isn't. It's tough to say whether I hate this episode or the beginning of 2.43 more in that regard. Because 2.43's plot line is also not very enjoyable to sit through.
Yeah, I think 243s is more the way they closed that plot line.
It's really dumb.
'Cause
The whole
It was a prank, bro.
yeah, that bit
It's such a dumb fucking plot line.
Yeah.
That was a dumb plot line.
In my brain, these two, the 2.43 is a very good show to compare this one to. They have very similar problems across their boards. The only difference
that's
here is
fair.
at least this one tries to make a supporting cast. And it's a
Also
shame
true.
because I like some of them, and I think some of them really could have great potential if they were in a different show. And the
I
good
just
thing
think like,
is,
this show is just so close to being like a decent sports show, and then just fails at all the important bits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
Which is a shame.
it's a lot like Sonic 06 where you can see that there's something there, but
Yeah.
it
It's
just
just
falls.
different-
The
it's a different problem
drama's
from Beach
only
Boy.
mediocre if not very good, and the sports don't look very good.
With,
Mhm.
Oh
with,
my God,
Peach,
that's
fucking
the
with
issue.
Peach Boy, you had all the right things. They were just never in the right place. In Remain, you almost have the right framework. You just don't have the right things going in it, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunate.
That's right. Like again, it's just like it just hits the wrong notes, and it's just like one of those things where it's like, the show itself isn't good enough to make up for like when it messes up,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But,
I'm
like,
probably
overall-
myself
overall, I
going to
enjoyed
finish
Remain a little
this
bit.
show off because I haven't closed the door on it because of this past episode. I understand closing the door on it because of this past episode, and I'm at least semi-invested in the main character because I like the growth
can
the main
understand
character has. Especially the scene at the end of this episode, I think is very nice with him and the girl. I'm interested in the face she winds
I
up
like the
making at
girl
the
a
end of the
lot.
episode because it makes me question her motives a little bit because she kind of goes from like the nice smile to like I can't tell if it's a smirk or if it's like a
Tell you, man, this
scheming
show's
smile.
this
It's,
show's more about revenge than Osamake is, dude.
I don't,
Every
I don't
character's
want to
up for
hear it
revenge.
every time. I also think that again, like we were saying, again, it's literally all right here. All you have to do is let this guy become the manager, and then let him work with with the track kid who like starts to feel bad for putting him up to it and actually wants to help him.
Yeah,
All you
have
have
a-
to do is
you
make
have
the
a
show a
character
drama, and it would
there
have been way better.
Who can help him practice doing endurance training. Like it's written right there for you. Do it, but it doesn't.
You see,
Sorry.
the show didn't want to write an extra character, so they couldn't make him
No.
a manager.
Yeah. Now we have I flipped over to this a little early.
The
and
better
it's
re-show.
why I laughed. Cause God, this screenshot.
Oh man, we just watched this actually right before.
Yeah,
Michael-
we literally
Yeah,
just
we
watched
all just watched this, and
Yeah,
we're probably gonna be
love this
watching
show.
this show right before
Yeah.
the podcast every
Yeah.
week from here on out. So
Yeah.
Too good
As
to
you
not
guys
watch,
can
man.
see, we did in fact choose to watch this episode.
we did not watch the
Um,
0.5. We decided it wasn't worth
yeah.
the time.
Um, this episode, I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed all the
I
stuff we
did
got with
too.
other characters. I think this does it. It was funny. We had good moments between the characters. It's developing more. It finally confirms that our main character is in fact not a brick. He can read people's emotions. Amazing. We have a protagonist who understands that females like him. It's wild.
The character that has really quick thinking all the times that it matters also has logic and isn't completely oblivious and can read a room. What?
I don't know. I really enjoyed a lot of what we got this episode. I like how ridiculously blunt Nanako was with her straight up essential confession in the convenience store freezer. With the we did this before. This time it's
Boob
on
hat.
purpose. It was real neat. I also like him going to Kawasegawa and going, I don't know what to do about this because he trusts her as a person, and
Yeah,
it's very clear. The idea is that one, she's separate, she's a female, and he also doesn't seem to like any of them in a romantic way. That's why he goes to her. He's like, I need an outlet. What do I do? You're a female. Please help.
I couldn't imagine.
But she likes him too, and he has no idea because she doesn't show it at all. So I think it's
She's also
really
just not
neat.
living with them, so
Could you
Yeah.
imagine having 3 girls liking you while you're at college at the same time?
Shut the fuck up.
Wait.
Huh?
Wait.
I feel like there's a story we're
There's
missing
a
here.
story here that y'all are gonna have
We'll
to
talk
tell us
about this
afterwards.
Was Michael a girlfriending it up in the door?
Upstream. I had to do it though.
Yeah, I know.
The
I know
max
you
the
did.
max I've gotten is 2 actually, so
I've been in a
Why-
healthy long-term relationship the whole time I've been on campus.
I was at-
so
I was at 3 once, I think, maybe, but I didn't know about it technically.
I like the approach they take with Nanako here. I think for her character, it would probably
It's
upset
true.
me if she backed down. I think
I
this
totally
works.
agree.
I
Yeah.
think this fits. I think
Yeah.
I'm more surprised by
I'm-
Shino Aki's character and just
How far forward she is.
but also she's very much kind of been portrayed as like a doesn't
Innocent.
always know
What
you
she
know
wants.
well not that but like doesn't always understand the situation she's in, but this episode seems to give us the implication
Here's-
she understands it a little better than we
She
might
understands
think.
it very well.
Yeah.
She's playing oblivious, just like our main character. I like a lot of things about what they did about the situation. I like not backing down from Nanako. My thing is, I don't know how I feel about them not clarifying what happened 2 episodes ago, right? Because that feels very much like Are we dating now? We're dating now, right? Like we're dating now? Yeah, okay, good.
I don't know.
Like and cut and dry. And then the next episode frames it like, she saw what happened. They might not have announced it in the dorm yet, but they probably say it amongst themselves, right? That's what we assume. And then now they're kind of just like, yeah, they both kind of like me, but I don't know. Like it's like that feels like a
As-
really big gap we
as
just like kind of missed
someone
there.
who's been on a college
Like,
campus and seen
as-
a lot of this unfold
as-
in front of my
As
eyes,
the romance and
I don't
slice
think
of
this is
life
off
slut.
note.
Okay, I don't think it's off note at all though for college. I agree, but usually there's more alcohol involved,
True.
or
I've
other
seen it,
illicit
so
substances
no, you
that
might
aren't
be right.
necessarily.
You might be right.
Yeah, I am.
Plus also, it's I believe the legal drinking age in Japan is 18.
It's one. I thought it was 20.
Is it 20? Oh, yeah, that actually makes more sense. But
But I agree that the Kawasagawa thing is perfect actually, because that is who he'd go to first of all. He wouldn't go to Tsurayuki because he's living with them, and he gets the idea of what's going on here. But like at the same time, like
he has his
he's got
own.
he's got his own issues
problem
right
with- he's
now,
already
right?
struggling with those.
Kawasagawa is an outside source that is his vent, was his basically his senpai at work, like in terms of that. That isn't now, but she is a close friend that he can confide to that is outside of the situation and outside of the circle, right? But
She
also
might
likes
not-
him.
She might not
right?
be outside the circle enough, though.
For
that
long.
might be a problem.
That's
with
the
it.
thing.
But
That's
she's
also
already
kinda-
kind of a part of the team, so the better
the
choice
thing is
would
she-
realistically have been Senpai Lolly.
Okay, hear me out though. She's totally in for this because if he can't decide between those two and the fight breaks out, she slides in, boom, easy rebound game. Best girl wins.
Easy.
However,
we also have to deal with the Tsurayuki thing about like
is he gay?
he might like we were memeing on that, and then Sayuri said something about it. We were just like, well, wait, no, this might
I
actually
did
be okay.
really like that entire.
I don't know if I'd like it better if he likes him, if he's bi, if he's gay, or if it's just playing it up for the camera and he actually is into the girls, like he kind of
Look,
hints at.
Look, all I'm
Like I'm
saying
fine with
is,
all those options.
look, all I'm saying is we've all been in college.
Yeah.
True. True.
Mason,
No,
I'm
the
gonna share with you
funniest
guys,
thing is
Mason. I
the more I
never
think
had
back to
thought
this
that I was gay
episode,
before.
Oh, John,
the
you're gonna be
thing where
straight
he
with me?
goes, the thing where she thinks he
Yeah,
might be gay,
for once.
honestly makes sense. The way he reacts to seeing this girl in lingerie doesn't pin him as a very straight guy.
I mean, this is also a
Like-
childhood friend. We don't know what happened in childhood frienddom.
I mean, yeah.
Also,
Also, it's
he's
one of the
in
things where
Japan,
also, he's
taking
trying to get
baths with
work
childhood
done.
friends happens and stuff like that. But and like with family members, like nudity isn't as big of a deal in
Man,
Japan.
The door
the theme.
hover scene in this episode goes
That was-
hard.
he
That
just
was a
stands
long-
there and goes,
That was the most awkward door hover I've seen. I mean, to be fair, like, how do you break into that moment
Yeah,
besides
no,
just
there's
walking out
no
and coming back
way.
in 5 minutes? Like, I'm surprised you didn't do that, or you hear like the door
Close
close.
this
Like, but yeah, the last point I want to make is just I like Kawasagawa's entire like shtick in this episode, right? Where she makes a little bit of a scene. Obviously, she's like, "Really, you're going to me about this? Like, you don't even know, buddy." But also that like gives him actual rational advice. It goes, I see why you're not making decision. I would be upset that you're not making decision early, but I get it for the sake of the project, right? And I
Yeah.
like that they established that. Like,
Yeah.
we're not just
Right point.
stalling on the romance for the sake of extending the romance and the plot. We're stalling on it because if shit happens, this project is going to implode really quickly. Because if one part goes down mentally, the entire project's fucked.
So one reason why I really like this is because of personal experience. Just because like literally film school. This is not exact thing, but like I
Right.
once was in a project where my group members were me, my roommate, one of my best friends, and the girl I was sleeping with at the time. And it got really bad because we annoyed the shit out of my roommate. And so it imploded the project and we failed. And so I'm just sitting there like, no, this is
No,
no,
I,
this makes sense.
I've been in situations where tensions in a group project have gotten very high, and I've almost walked out in the group project and had to suck up my feelings and be like, everything's fine, let's finish this. so that it
Mhm.
didn't fully implode and get us a bad grade.
Oh,
It would be deserved
love
for
group-
those people. But
I love
didn't
group
do it.
projects. I'm so excited to have more group projects this semester. I love group projects. They're so great. They're so much fun. Oh my god, I get the same fucking group members every group project. I know exactly how they're gonna operate. Ugh. That's what sucks about nursing school is because when you have group projects, there's only like 7 of you, so you get the frequent flyers in your groups, and you're like, I already know this person's gonna do that. This person's gonna need their stuff at the last minute. This person's gonna. I hate being the one in group projects. This is gonna be a side rant. I am always that person who has to fucking take the initiative to get shit done, and I hate that because I'm the laziest motherfucker. But I also am like super personally responsible for my own work in a sense of like, I'm gonna get this shit done, but understand I'm gonna get it done at the last minute possible. So get me your shit so I can put it all together for you. I had a project last semester or 2 semesters ago this year where like we had to like record a PowerPoint because fucking COVID online classes, right? And instead of like being able to record with the software on there, no one could figure it out or whatever. So I'm like, just record a video of you fucking doing this on Karuta. Send me that link and I'll fucking piece each bit and place it to the PowerPoint because I have an older PowerPoint and have to put this together. It was
I'll be interested to
it's
see
so hard.
if this show dives into putting our main character
God
in a
bless Audacity,
in
though.
the position where he's not the leader and has to work with a leader who doesn't work the way he does, because that's a
Hope it's
very
Kawasagawa.
tough situation where like if a leader has a plan and they're not as like heavily scheduled or well thought out as you are, it can seem like a huge mess and cause a lot of problems.
Here's the thing. I don't think they'll split up the group though. Or actually, now that you're mentioning it, I hope they kind of do.
I want them
To
to
a degree, like,
test
I
him.
want them to separate the
It-
4 people. Right? I like that they keep the groups together for this and they can choose their own project. But like, what if there's a project where he isn't in the group with all of them?
Yeah,
What if he's with
it'd be
one of
interesting
them?
to see.
Also,
Or he's just
what if
just
he
with
goes and
Kawasagawa,
does
right?
What if he goes and does work with the gaming company?
Outside of these guys.
Because
So
he wouldn't be a director there probably, because she's the director. It seems like, or
Is that a
Well, I
company or is
would
that like a school run like
Well,
No,
she's-
it's a company.
she's
it's an
the
indie.
company.
Yeah, at least an indie company run.
oh, it's in
by
the company and she
somebody
just happens to be at the school at the time?
Well, she's a
Yeah,
graduate.
it's
She's
run
graduated.
by
No, teacher-
people in the school.
Teacher graduated. Is our Lolly senpai
Yes,
still
she
senpai?
also
Yeah,
no,
yes.
she also
No,
graduated.
I
No,
think she's
I-
like
I can't tell
think
if
she's
she's
late-
a
I think
fourth
she's a late
year
year
or she
student.
graduated.
she's
she
like
is
your
a-
student because she mentions the teacher graduating from the club from them.
No, so the Lolly Senpai is a graduate student.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Because she
So it's
remember there's
still
a
at the school.
conversation she has with the club where she's like, "Are they still here?" And they're like, "No," which implies that they've been there long enough to see someone go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have the direct scene where he's talking with the teacher and he's
Oh,
like, "Yes, Kawasagawa senpai graduated from our club X years ago."
Yeah.
I think she said something along those lines. It's all confusing because with film school there's a lot of class.
So going back to the splitting up the groups, I think the best way they could do that is put Kyoya and Kawasagawa in a group.
That's what I'm saying.
Put Tsurayuki in his own group with random people, probably with a meathead friend, and then put Shinoaki and Nanako in a group.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be fantastic.
But then also having another project manager
They could
in that
also-
group with those
They
two
could also
to
do the
like
girls
cause
and the
conflict.
guys.
That also would be good.
Honestly, I mean, the thing
'Cause
is like
That
in
gets
the end-
you more of the girls' dynamic than testing his leadership rather.
I want at the same time I also want someone that's not Kawasagawa in his group that is also like the project manager type, right? Like someone to directly oppose his like leadership to a degree and
it's
get like a my way or the highway
It would
thing.
be a really interesting dynamic because
But at the same time-
obviously he knows things from the future to like help influence the way he's
He
been
can
planning
cheat.
things. So, but if you have another person who's like, I don't think that's right, and isn't gonna back down on that, that's an interesting conflict. The show has a lot of really huge potential it can use, and it's
And
just
what's
a matter
crazy
of
is
what it's going to do.
It could go any of these ways and I'd still probably be happy with it with how good it's just
It could also
doing
go
with
none
its
of these
characters.
ways.
Yeah,
Exactly,
and I'd
that's
still
it.
be happy.
Honestly, I still would enjoy the show probably.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I want my romance bits to keep the romance bits up. Those are really good for the slice of life. Thank you.
So,
That's my one sign.
Good show.
are we
Good
ready for the hour-long conversation?
The
we're about
hourly
to
Sunny
dive
Boy
into?
discussion.
Hey, Michael, do you stream up?
Holy Shit.
No, I need to get it
You
up.
need to get
though.
stream up for this screenshot because only you're gonna get it.
I'm confused. But okay, I'll get
No,
it.
I
Yeah, it
I'm-
lagged. My computer doesn't approve.
Oh
no,
Isn't
Sean,
that from
I
that's from
had
that
the
one
exact
game?
same thought when I saw this fucking dude.
I think you said that when we were watching it.
Yeah,
Motives are complex.
oh, I
Is
didn't
that
even
the
say. I didn't even think.
the Notary games?
Okay, okay. I fucking
Yeah,
hate you,
this is
Sean.
this is an
All
anime
right.
game reference.
So
That
so
will
let's
be
see
a
if I can
long reference in the making.
let's
for
see
you
if I
when you
can
play
try
them.
to like unpack what happened in this episode.
Oh,
Um, so this was my number one because this show answers
so good.
questions and then brings up more and always leaves you wanting more answers to more questions at the same time. So we are now 2 months past where we last left off. They've been adrift for approximately 8 months total. We are now in a world where Nagara's group with Raj and Nozomi and Mizuho
Mizuho.
are like kind of their own four-man group, keeping Nagara safe away from the other group. You have the split off student council group and students who are like a like isolated faction of their own who are like, we don't trust the teacher because she claims she's talking to God, but actually I'm talking from God, which we actually get confirmation he's talking to God, who is actually the principal, because actually, by the way, the principal's the God in this world because he is. That's their explanation for it.
Hey, they rolled the dice.
They literally said that, like uh, I'll get to that later. But so essentially
Nanami
these
explains
different
that
groups have
God
different
is
ways to
God.
do it. We have our teacher, who we know is definitely not like how the teacher was in the other world, with some of the clips we get. Still corrupting our MC Escher boy, whose name I will never say.
Asakaze.
Still not gonna do it. Basically convincing him that he is the savior and he is this god. We have Starboy, who also thinks he's kind of a savior and the god. And we have like the overarching theme of the show that like maybe Nagara is our savior per se. But effectively, school gets cast adrift. 8 months pass. Groups are separated. Nagara's group is in a new world that is like a movie theater of the mind from Nagara's point of view,
So
in
fucking
which
cool.
they have a bunch of different ways that they explain. They answer a lot of like the questions you might come up with, like why don't you just roll the tape back till when you were, because it affects the actual reality around it if you edit the tape through editing software, right?
But
And so
only
they answer,
sometimes.
but only if it wants to, through
Only if-
seemingly random
And only
chance,
if Nagara is
which
there.
which is like they also stated that like they tried rewinding the tape, it wouldn't work because you can't go back to the past and rewind the fabric of reality, right? It doesn't like that. The universe doesn't agree with that. It's like, no, not a good enough answer, figure out something else. Until they basically like edit together a director's cut of like the 8 months they missed out on to their graduation and where it would have been, and that's their plan. Again, you guys can fill in bits and pieces later. I'm trying to get through all this. It's so much that happens. Then we have basically like they create like a black cube that's called the Ark, because our Starboy over here is trying to kind of keep them safe while this plan goes off. They basically convince him to go with the plan. And at the same time, we have cuts of him being talked about. The people, it's like, this isn't like you're not usually so like against people's input and this and that, right? And we actually hear another clip of him where there's a different voice over top of his that I believe was it God's?
It's
Like,
the-
is that the
It's
thing?
it's God's.
Yeah,
It's
that's
Principal
It was the
God.
principals?
God.
Because we see
Okay.
Hoshi, who is the Starboy, at the very beginning of the episode talking with the principal.
So I like to think the implication here is that they used the voice clip to tell us, the viewer, that he's just reciting what he's heard from God.
Hmm.
Like he's literally just regurgitating that fact to them from what he's heard. The
I
idea
can't
that
tell
like
if it's that or like a possession thing at some points.
I mean, it could be that. This show could be going down that
But-
road, but from what we know right
but-
now, I'm assuming the latter.
I assume the former because of
I meant
how
the
like they discuss his character overall changing during this experience. But we also meet a dog who was actually a human beforehand, who was actually their junior, who has been here for 50,000 years,
5,000.
whatever it was, that Mizuho finds in makeshift Catsko, which is Costco for cats, I guess.
Also voiced by Nanami.
Also voiced by Nanami because dog backward is God. And this dog is here who explains that, wow, space time doesn't actually exist. The Inu is their junior who entered the world in the future, but was sent 5,000 years in the past to this world. Someone get dialed in Palkia on this shit. So we have any changes to development packing stuff. So when they play this director's reel, the Arc is basically just buying time so that this thing can play and rewrite reality. And we get
So they
sent
can try
into
and
this.
get that.
We get sent into this universe where it is graduation, right? A hypothetical graduation. But not everything's as it seems. They don't become the individuals in that world. They just are spectators of this movie as if they're just in the movie theater. And we get this cool shot that's like the movie playing, and we see the hallway of the graduation, and you just see all the kids in the arc lined up in silhouettes, just watching this because they're not actually there. They're just like mentally there, watching like through like a shadow. We also find out that in this future, Nozomi is fucking dead. Like in the 8 months thing. Like the only things left are like the arc crashing down. You have characters we don't know, who's like a guy with like a giant sock on his head and a fucking umbrella man, who are like, oh man, they were so close too.
These next episodes are gonna get wild.
Mhm.
We
We
find
have
out
like
that
half a
Wild
show
before?
left.
we
I
find out
mean,
like
but come on.
like this is potentially like the true reality of an older world, that Nagara didn't actually create a new world. He just opened another possibility for God to look at. Because in reality, them going adrift is just God seeing what would happen and rolling dice, is what they say basically. The arc doesn't
Also-
work. This reel doesn't work. The metaphors are all over the place, and like, holy fuck! Like, there's so much I can't even talk about.
Every
There's
metaphor
so
is exactly what you
everything.
expect it to be. She sees the light because she's dead.
'Cause she fucking
Oh,
dies
and,
in that universe.
The fucking with the arc. When the arc goes off, guess what's happening? A flood because Asakaze's throwing tidal waves at them.
There are a couple of things I think Mason and I might be on the same page on that I think I want to touch in. The first thing is the arc scene is that the the Starboy doesn't necessarily go along with Nagara doing this. It's
No.
more of Nagara influences the impact of the water in the arc to the point that he's like, okay, wait, you actually did kind of save this thing. I'll let you do this. Let's see how it turns out.
Yeah.
And there's also a really important line. I screen capped over it. Funny enough, but the scene where the principal was talking to him, he asks Hoshi. He goes, "Are you sure that they want to be saved from what you're saving them from?" Like, he basically says, "Are you sure you're the one who should be doing this?" Like, he questions Hoshi's motives and desires to be the savior. Like, he knows he's not the one who's supposed to be doing it. And then we have this kind of conversation he gives to Nozomi, to Nagara, about that they weren't the chosen ones, which to me feels like you're rolling the dice to see who are the ones who makes it and who are the ones who kind of wind up in like a more purgatory like state, because that's kind of what this is giving me the vibes of.
So they said towards the end of the episode that they are not the actual ones that were going to the school.
Mhm.
They are copies of those people,
Mhm.
which is a very interesting point that I don't know what to think about, because
So
it's
many things.
but also I'm starting to feel like this is the point of, okay, we've made our first real actual attempt at leaving, and also it's giving our characters the boost of, okay, this one didn't work, but we got to the point where we could see the world now. That means we're getting closer, and I think that's going to give them the morale boost of, no, this is actually possible, and we're going
And
to
wait,
keep trying.
Nagara's the one who did
I
it?
think it's gonna
Wait a second,
give
maybe
some
he's
of
not a
them
terrible person.
the morale boost. I think you have a lot of work to do on a lot of just the side regular kids, because they are really down right now.
The teachers,
Mhm.
like the teacher's also really interesting. Like you're saying, when
She's
she was
implied
talking,
not to
she
be
was-
human
she
at all.
also implied not to be evil really at all, and that like we have this scene where like they're crashing down and all of them are like depressed, and he questions, or she questions him, right? Like, he's saying like, are you sure you want to do that, or like, what did she say? I forget the line, but like she's talking directly to our MC Escher boy, and basically they're having this conversation of like, did this actually have to happen? Could they have made it, right? Basically, could they have actually made it?
I felt like she
So-
was trying to tell him, like, see, we were right. Nagara can't save them.
Yeah.
That
Which to
too.
me
So-
sounds like the bad direction to go in.
So also there were a couple of things.
But they didn't frame her in
For
evil. like
one,
they did. Go ahead.
For one, Aki, the teacher, tells Asakaze before all of the arc stuff happens that that Nagara and Raj and all of his group are defying God by trying to get out, which is a very interesting way of putting it. Also, we learn from Nanami Dog that
Nanami Dog.
that only students are the ones that get set adrift,
And the principal, because he's got
and the principal because he is God.
But he's only the
Those-
principal by coincidence, so technically there's an argument he's not even adrift, right?
Yeah, he's
so
not
only
really
students get
adrift.
sent adrift.
Only students get set adrift, which means Aki is not supposed to be there at all, which
Who's
is
to
making
say- Yeah, go ahead.
like yeah, which with her not supposed to be there at all makes me start to think of
She's a student.
no. It's
Mm.
making me think that she is another player introduced to try and set them off the path of getting back. And I think God's plan originally, up until she showed up, was let's just see what they do. And once
Yeah.
they actually get a good way to get back, I'll let them.
Or we'll see if it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that like we have like a world now where it's like, do characters like Nozomi want to go back now at
I
all?
mean, the
right?
implication always
If
seemed to be that
if what's
Nozomi-
waiting for you in that other world when you go back is death, like, does she want to return now? Does this change her character seeing this scene? She clearly was like completely distraught and like she was broken by this scene, right? For a minute, she was sitting down in the gym by herself, curled up, until Nagara came in and's like, "We got to go back. Like, we're
Also-
not done here."
Also, another thing that got brought up when they were
God.
watching the things happen, which one quick thing, all the bit with the art has an amazing backing track to it, and
Mhm.
it's one of my favorite scenes in all of anime now. Is just this arc bit because it has an amazing backing track and it has one of the smoothest fucking bits of animation I've ever seen in my goddamn life with
Mm.
Raj leaning over the side of the arc, and it's just an amazing like whoever did that bit of animation needs a fucking raise. But actual point, one thing we learn during this like this movie of what's happening in the real world, Nagara's mom died before the graduation.
And he might not have a dad either.
So
already.
here's an odd thing about
And
that,
she's been
right?
gone for a while because you see all those trash bags like in the
So,
house.
Do we think
Hmm.
this is a denial thing in Nagara's mind? Because the way that house is framed makes me think, and the way that the teachers talk makes me think that the implication is everyone else still thinks she's alive. Because I didn't get the implication that she was dead. I got the implication
seemed
that
like
she was
she
in
ran.
dire health
She's gone.
situations.
Yeah.
To me, this may be one of those like refusal to accept she's dead, and like the house
I mean,
is kept in the
We have
state
the
when she
line from like
was.
the counselor that says, "What do you what we still have to figure out what to do about your mother."
Yeah,
Well,
but
also
that
it
makes
could-
it sound like they're waiting
Which
for
just
her
means
to
so many
make
things. It could mean
contact.
so many
What,
things.
what it could be is she
Ah.
also like abandoned him.
Yeah, there's
That's what I
a
was
lot of
thinking.
things it could be.
I don't think we're gonna go back to that like for a while.
Also, man, the
Hmm.
implications of how people view Nagara and how like even the staff view him with the birds, like the fact of the bird where he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
so you took your anger out on the bird," and Nagara's very clearly
Oh,
like,
you're just a depressed kid.
"No, I did not do that."
It's a white feather, first of all, but
Also, probably also we have to think about the correlation this show sets up with the bird and with Nozomi, with the fact that this is leading into the scene showing us that she is dead, and the whole point with Nozomi so far has been to express to Nagara that even though something is hurt and can't escape, doesn't necessarily mean it is doomed to die, right? It doesn't necessarily deserve to die. And we have this white feathered bird, and then her death immediately afterwards.
like for me,
There's
like it was
definitely a parallel
like
there.
like in the first couple minutes of the episode too, I was questioning like, is Nozomi even like a member of their class, or is she just a figment of this world's creation to a degree? Until they showed like her being a part of that graduation ceremony and stuff, because she was just a transfer student who happens to be also here, kind of thing. Like I was like, is she actually like a good person in this whole thing, or is she part of the distraction,
But
right?
if we
And it's just like, and then they answer all the questions. They're like, no, she was there. By the way, she would have died.
If-
You're gonna deal with that trauma in a minute.
if you think about it, there's this kind of explanation that like the show is giving us the explanation for why the rest of our cast thinks she's a transfer student, because they're the extras, they're not the ones who make it, and the ones who make it, she dies as their classmate. So like her fate's even more of a dire role than the rest of theirs, where like to them, oh, she's just a transfer student who hasn't been around.
That's my thing too. Is like, who else noticed that? because there's no way nobody else didn't go to the classroom and see that there was a dead student, right? And just go, who the fuck's that? Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no, is me.
Like,
There's a
oh
lot in
no,
this
God damn
episode,
it.
and unfortunately for me, not having sat down after to retread through it like I know you guys did, and not having the chance to kind of talk points through it like we do now, I couldn't put it number one because it just felt like too much too fast, and a couple of points seemed a little off, like off hinge to me. The arc stuff without talking about it and looking into it seems like it kind of doesn't fit, and there's
Legit.
a couple of things that just make it really hard
Yeah.
to go through.
the
But I also
symbolism of
accept that
things.
I'm probably still gonna get answers for things that I don't understand from this episode in the future.
Exactly.
It's just hard for me to put it above Venice, which is an episode I very much enjoyed and was a good character development, and just there were no missteps for me there.
So legitimately, like I think we watched through the arc bit 3 times, once during the actual episode, and then we rewound it twice.
Yeah.
So
It's
One
like
could just look at it and
it's
two,
such a show where it's just like you just have to like go back and like just like breathe for a second and like watch it.
God, and
In
I'm
my
not
opinion.
excited for the reviews that are gonna come out about this show because I know there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna shoot this thing down because it just
it's too confusing.
yeah.
It's too big brain.
Which, like, I understand, but also, like, there's an appreciation for what it is doing, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. Especially with the potential introduction of students who have also been there for long enough times that they too have been transformed. I think it poses a potential what if for the cast we have. About, like, okay, not only are you functioning on a timeline that, like, because Nanami Dog does explain, like, 8 months, you have time to still get out of here. And then he explains, well, the 8-month time period is within the margin of error, that there could still be things that don't work or that do work. So knowing that they're on this odd time period where, like, they only have so much time they can get out, or so at least Nanami Dog thinks. And then, of course, they also have so much time until they start to change, which is probably the moment where they can't get out again, unless there are rules that we find that don't necessarily work like that. This show's insane.
It's so good.
Still no opening. We'll never have an opening until the last
No.
episode where they give us an opening.
this episode just had a lot of mute. The weird thing with this episode, it had a lot more like actual background music.
Yeah.
Because normally we get like one and it's super short. We got the entire arc bit had one.
Which, like, also,
Which-
this is the mid-episode for this show, right? So, like, it makes sense
Yeah.
that this is, like, as big as it is.
This episode was just fucking it it was a lot. Everything we got I thought was really good, looked really good. Everything about the show in terms of its production,
The visuals
amazing,
are
still
just so
amazing.
good.
Visuals, audio,
I think
everything.
my like the favorite moment I had is because you know what's coming when they're playing the reel and she's like, I can see it, it's closer than ever, and she's reaching out and just as she grabs it, pitch black, dead silent, everything cuts for like 5 seconds, and then we come to Nagra in his apartment, right? And it's just
All
like
that cut to like God speaking to them.
Yeah, it cuts to
God,
God.
God says speaks first, and then it cuts to the you're right.
It cuts, and then God says, "You are no longer needed."
You're no longer needed. Like
And then you go, what?
it's just like chotomate.
I'm interested to see how our characters develop
Man.
because we have a lot of characters who have been like they've been showing scenes of them for very particular reasons. So we have Nagara's friend, the glasses kid, who's been having conversations even like behind the backs of the teacher Misaki, where he's like, so Nagara, what exactly is Nagara's power, and like, can I trust him? And like him seemingly trying to come around on Nagara and trusting him because he's always kind of been on the fence about whether he can or not. And then we also have characters like the rest of the student council, including the president, who look at Hoshi and like not only does Cap question him acting differently, but the student president looks at him like she's kind of afraid of him a handful of times this episode. And like she's ready to just leave. There's also a handful of students who between the last episode and this episode leave Miss Aki's side and come back to the student council side, because there's a lot of them, and a lot of them had jumped ship previously. And I guess the argument is, upon hearing that Nagara might have a way home, they're more likely to side with him after not
take a
getting
shot at
home, after trusting Misaki, or realizing that, like, man,
Slavery
we
bad.
aren't getting home. Yeah. There's
because
so much here.
Yeah, because like even in the beginning of the episode, we see Aki is running her group like a fucking boot camp. And
It's just so many questions.
There's a scene I don't get. I still haven't figured out what it is, and it's when Ace is walking
Monkey
with
baseball?
his group. And, like, it's just Ace is walking.
Yeah, Ace's group is weird.
They have the thing that they needed to activate the arc, so were
Yeah.
they double-crossing Miss Aki to help?
I think yes, because they realized that she
That's-
was like being an asshole.
That's one of those scenes that I feel like just the way it's framed in the midst of everything.
It's hard to tell which side
It's
they were
hard
on.
I think it's because they're playing both sides in a way, right? Because
Yes.
they're like,
Yeah.
we'll give you this because if you're right, it'll save us.
But we still don't like Nagara.
But we also
so-
don't trust you, and we also are going along with Nagara's plan.
Yeah, I think like the idea with Ace is that he like in his brain he understands Nagara has the power that's going to help them out. He just doesn't like Nagara as a person because he thinks Nagara is being an asshole to
He
them.
also he also thinks Nagara's just doing this for his own gain, right?
Yeah, like he thinks Nagara's intentionally put them here and is intentionally holding them here.
Which is like,
But he understands that Nagara also has the power to bring them out.
I still
which
don't
is
get
when
that,
Hoshi
like-
goes, "Hey, do this thing." He goes, "Okay, I guess."
they also explain talk a little bit about how like more people had powers beforehand and just never mentioned it. So was the school really the school to begin with, right?
Well,
With
like,
another point they
Also,
kind
my
of
thing
touched on.
is, did they have
And-
the powers to begin with?
and-
We still don't fucking know.
At the school. And the other thing is, like, remember when Mizuho, like 2 episodes ago, said that
Yes.
she was the reason they went adrift, and we
I've
still
not
haven't
forgotten
addressed
this.
that yet? I haven't
Yep.
forgotten that either.
And
I'm
and
just
her
like,
going, "What was my power?" Because I still think the fact things are all cat based means it's not hers and it's the cat's powers.
I agree.
That's
She's
why
just
it's called
really good with the cat.
Amazon.
There's a lot of interest.
Who's to say the cats aren't actual people?
We don't know.
No,
Yeah,
the cats are
it's-
people too.
It's very possible that like the
I'm the
memories
cat
they
man.
have aren't inherently true. They're like placed and given memories. Like it's very difficult to tell because we don't know the full extent. Like we need more, obviously, and we're gonna get it.
We gonna get it.
This show's insane.
The show's insane.
We're
Like,
gonna get it like
people, like,
everyone in
ha-
Remake Our Life was getting it.
Also,
Sean, honestly though, having talked to us, does it change your opinion of Sunny Boy potential #1 this week?
I still think just due
Are you
to
still
the
getting-
experience of when I watched it, I'm still placing it at 2. But
Okay.
like
That's understandable.
that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that like when I get to the end of this season, it can't be better than Vanitas at all. Like that, like I'm considering the fact that I think Sunny Boy for me has like been 1 or 2, almost like after once I've started getting on board with it, and it earned kind of my trust like a week or 2 ago. Like it's very likely this will be the best show for me as long as it doesn't majorly drop anything. I just right now couldn't sell it over Vanitas for me, which didn't
No, that's
have
fair.
a misstep.
I was just curious.
So Sean, you gonna give us that voting form?
Yeah, you
Do
could
we
vote,
need
Shannon.
to? Can we all just generally? No, I will. I just didn't drop it in. I do have. I have to get to the
God,
page.
dude, this show is so crazy. Like, just watching it hurts. Like, it hurts my brain.
So
But in a good way.
Mason,
Yeah,
you
in a
talked
good
about
way.
like how the music and the scene like does a lot for you in this in this episode. It
Yeah.
has there's a reason this show's most likely going to be a 10 for me, and it's because it's giving me very similar feelings to what is my favorite anime of all time, which is Terra and Resonance.
I need to watch
Seems
that. still.
Evangelion
In
scene.
fact, Terra and Resonance scene that I like might also happen episode 6. I have to check that. But Terra and Resonance has a motorcycle scene that has my
I
favorite.
swear it's
backing
later.
It probably is, but my brain now wants me to say it's 6 just because of.
But I don't know. It could be really early. I don't remember exactly the
find
order
out.
of events in that show. All I know is that, yeah, the show's real good. I may not give it a perfect 10. I don't know if I gave it a 10. I don't remember. Show's really good.
Sunny Boy's getting close to that territory. If it closes out as strong as it started in the
There's
last
no
half,
way that scene's in episode 4.
Oh,
Holy
man.
shit.
Wait, is it that
That's
early?
episode 4.
Holy, yeah, it is. I was like, it's late. Then I went, no, wait, it's really early. And I remember when you had me watch it, I was like, this is really early on, Sean. This is kind of wild.
Because I told you,
I'm
I'm
gonna
like,
watch-
this is one of my favorite scenes in all of anime. I'm a
I'm
sucker.
probably going to end up watching that once like we get a bit more time.
I've
Probably
mentioned
Very sweet.
I've mentioned to Michael that show single-handedly made me fall in love with Icelandic music, and also probably reignited my love for like folk music as a whole, just because like that was like kind of a slippery slope into folk again for me. So like that show I don't necessarily think it's a perfect show, but the way I enjoyed it made me love it. It's one of those like, this is a 10 because there's just nothing that I hate watching. Like Violet Evergarden might be is almost probably a better show construction wise.
Yeah, like that's my thing with a lot of the shows I have at 10s is like, is Made in Abyss probably
Yes.
like on a direction thing a absolute perfect show? Yes. But do I think Hanasaki Iraha was a better show for me? Yes.
Like I could say like a show can be perfect for a show, but like, is there ever truly going to be a masterpiece? No. Like for
The answer
me,
is
for
yes,
my
and it's
for me,
Sunny
the
Boy.
only two shows have ever been
Okay.
complete 10s, and it's Violet Evergarden and Your Name are the only things I've ever given a 10. Because
Okay.
both those shows made me cry more than fucking my entire 4-year
Yo, but
university college
Silent
degree.
Voice?
I have four
Nine-
things
nine
that
and
are
a half.
10.
9.5. I had some issues with Silent Voice from rewatch.
I have 4 things that I have as 10s. One Piece, because that is
One Piece will be.
One Piece will be, but I have it rated as a 10 because I have cried more at that show than literally anything else. Your Lie in April, Your Name, and Gakuen Handsome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And that is on there as a
I
meme.
mean, things that are close though, like Bunny Girl Senpai movie, A Silent Voice, Your Lie in April, all 9.5s. Like,
Yeah, I have a lot of 9.5s.
like there's some parts of them like you kind of gloss over in retrospect, but like since I've watched all of these more than once and sometimes more than twice, I've had a rewatch experience. 86 is a 9 for me. That was outstanding.
Yeah, so
But Chaos Season 2 specifically, and Jujutsu Kaisen, Brotherhood,
yes,
Kaguya 2,
Silent Voice.
Snafu 2 I gave a 9, and I accept it's not that good. However, it's my favorite show of all time, so I'm gonna give it a higher score than it probably deserves.
So I have one show that's on the 9s that should be I have a show that should be in 9s, but it is currently a 7. And it is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, specifically because on AniList it has part 1 and part 2 in the same thing, and part 1 is god
Because
awful.
they're one season.
Yeah, because it's one season, and part 1 is god awful, but part 2 is literally probably my favorite show, like my favorite show ever, aside from maybe Bunny Girl.
I am
But,
waiting
it's
on
so hard to-
one response.
I'm very
Sorry, I'm
lenient
thinking of
with
a clever
10s.
name for the week.
Like, on my anime list, my current 10s are Steins Gate, Hanasaku Iraha, Violet Evergarden, Made in Abyss, Your Duke of the World in Colors, Mob Psycho 2, Run with the Wind. As a joke, I have XR Meta 10,
Stop it.
Jujutsu Kaisen, Haikyuu Season 4 Part 2, and Vivi.
Um,
Maybe
Haikyuu
I
Season
think I
4
have as
Part
a
2
9.
is so
let's
fucking
see.
good.
I have
And
I have a lot
Vivi
of
was like everything I wanted in that show.
I have a lot. I didn't remember rating this part of Kaguya as a 10. That seems like a mistake on my end.
I have ReZero Season 2 Parts 1 and 2 as 9s. I have Promised Neverland Season 1 as a 9. I have Vivi as a 9. I have Kaguya Season 2 as a 9. I have Horimiya as a 9.
Oh, interesting.
I fucking love that show.
I give it an
I'm-
8.5.
I'm
but
very-
if I watch it again, I might bump it
I'm
up.
very lenient with
I
my
might watch it
9s
again.
because I'm not like too picky about that. My 10s,
My 10s I'm
I
very
have
picky.
Anohana, which maybe shouldn't be a 10, but I really enjoyed that
What if
ride
it's
when I
a one?
watched it.
I need to rank
Could
those.
not-
I really
What
like
if
that
put-
show.
what if
I
the
couldn't
Anohana?
get into it. I need to go back and watch it.
Uh,
I give it an 8.
Obviously,
I think
Terror
it's
and
fair.
Resonance, I've erased as a 10. I haven't engaged
I've
with
erased
the
it as
manga,
an 8.
so I don't. In my opinion, the anime to me was perfect. I didn't have any issues with it. A lot of what it does, I.
I
found
also
really
need to
great.
rank erased. Fuck.
I
I think
have it as
I think
an
I have that
8.
in my 3x3.
My biggest thing about ranking shows, I try to like separate them because it's like you can't compare shows of different genres. You cannot
Yeah.
convince me you can. Like shows will take things from other genres all the time, but like I can't willingly look at you and say whether or not Full Metal Alchemist or Kaguya-sama are better shows because for what they do for their genres and for what they're
It's
trying to
impossible.
do, they are
Tell-
both absolutely
Tell
fantastic.
me, what is better, Kaguya or Code Geass? particularly season 2.
Kaguya season 2, hard choice. I would because you know what? I'd watch Kaguya season 2 tonight if someone asked me to. I would not watch Code Geass season 2 again.
See, here's the problem. I would
probably.
absolutely watch multiple shows multiple times. That does not make them a 10 for me.
No, neither of those are 10s. Both of those are 9s for good reasons.
So to be fully honest, Code Geass season 2 overall not that great.
I actually
It's a 7 until the
I actually think
a
season
7
one's
until, like, the
a
last 4
better
episodes.
season than season 2 is.
I agree.
I will say the season 1 and season 2 are exact opposites. Season 1 has an excellent first like 99% and then has that one scene of the controversy that completely tanks season 1 for me. Season 2
Man, we
is
gotta
pretty
have
slow,
a Code Geass
pretty dull,
podcast so
and the
we
end
can
is
debate
fantastic.
this because I'm someone who
Co-
I'm pretty
Code
sure if
Geass-
it's the scene we're talking about, I
Oh.
actually really like the scene and don't think it's a problem.
Eh,
But
I
Wait,
no,
hold
no.
on.
I think I've
We
talked
talked
to
about
Dodge
this
about
before.
this.
I think we
We
talked
know
about this
exactly
before.
what scene this
Yeah.
is, and we're all
talked
We
about
all
thinking
know
the
what
same one.
scene. We all know what scene it
There's a
is.
reason
and-
why I was talking to Mason about this show. I'm like, there's a scene that I just refer to as the controversy, and we'll get to it. And we were watching this with 2 other people, and we're like, "Are you fucking kidding?" Like Mason almost like wanted to drop it while we were
Okay,
rewatching it.
So straight up, so we were watching this with our friend Spoon, who
Mhm.
Code Geass is his
And his girlfriend
favorite
Megan
show,
too.
and his girlfriend Megan, and Code Geass is no, we weren't watching it with Megan. We were
We were watching
watching it with
Megan.
Raffle. No,
Oh
we were
yeah,
watching it with Raffle.
he showed it to her afterwards. That's right.
So, but this is his favorite
She
show
got that
ever,
point.
and both him and John were like, "Okay, so you're gonna hate what happens at the end of season 1." And I'm just sitting there through the entirety of
Before
season
we
1, like,
started.
no, yeah, I'm just sitting there through the entirety of season 1, like, man, this show's really good. Like, it
It's
can't
got
be
those
that bad.
2000s, titty shots, but you expect
So
that.
like it hits every note for me of like why I got into anime in the first place.
We're allowed to say,
And,
can we? I want to clarify we're talking about the same scene.
We're talking
Episode
about
23.
So the Euphemia scene.
yeah,
Euphemia.
We're talking about
The
Lelouch
Euphemia
Sorry,
plot
yeah.
twist.
I
is what we're
arguably
gonna
have a
call it.
bigger problem with the actual last episode of Code Geass than I do that, but of season 1.
Okay. I was about to say season 2.
I think the end of
one of the best
season
animes
1
of all
is,
time.
but
no, so like
I think that's fine.
Euphemia, like
I think it's a good point.
so they're sitting there like, no, you're gonna fucking hate this, and I'm like, no, it can't be that bad. And then we get there, we finish season 1, and it's back to back the shit with Euphemia, and then the shit after with Suzaku and the King, and I'm sitting there like, Spoon, you are really lucky that you are one of my closest friends, because if you weren't, I would not continue this.
it's really funny. I watched this with Elvis, and I don't know.
I know
You
Elvis,
know
yeah.
Elvis.
He's a good guy.
He really liked the female supporting casts of Code Geass, which good. They're good characters when
Some
they're
of them
there.
are really good,
A lot of them who are like staples are fairly good, and I argue even
except
the
for when
ones-
Roll gets involved with them.
correct, and I argue the ones that are bad are like eh. I will say that like the Shirley scene in season 1, he was not a fan of. It really he did not like it. He was like, I don't like that they're doing this to me, and I was like, oh, you're really gonna hate what's about to happen.
You're gonna hate
in
it a little
couple
bit in season
episodes."
2.
Well, but even before that, but we got to the Euphemia scene. He's like, Sean, I want to stop watching this show, and I was like, no.
That's the crazy
I'm
thing.
like,
It's like
that's the feeling you're supposed to
that
feel.
scene makes you want to stop watching the show so bad, but then like you hear so much about how good the ending is, and you're like, "There's no way this is worth it." At the same time, and then you get to the
But
ending of the season
absolutely
2, and you're like,
is.
"God damn it, it was
The last
fucking
like
worth it."
6
But I'm still
episodes
thinking
of
about
season
episode
2.
And I
is,
had
like,
to go through this
peak
again with
fucking
him in
anime.
season 2 with Shirley.
Space Laser.
The only show
that's enough
on
crazy
my
stuff.
list that I haven't talked about that I gave a 10 that Michael hasn't already had, I actually have Iden Veda as a 10 because I really like that show. I think I don't really think there's a misstep in that show. I don't really have any issues with its ending. And I think
I think I can't
can
put
say
the show
right
over
now,
my
I
eyes. I
think-
think the ending is just. It feels like the entire ending happens in one episode, and I was like, oh, "Hold on, what?"
I
I'll let
just
you know right
love
now,
so
there's
much
just a
what it
lot.
does.
There's
Like, I'm not
one
going to talk about it because obviously. Yeah.
there's one Shonen Jump show or like action anime show that I think will ever crack the top 10, and that's gonna be Jujutsu Kaisen season 2. I can tell you that right now. That might crack my 10 rating, which
I
is
think
very
so.
hard
I
to
mean,
do
I
for
have
me for
JJK
those
season
types of
1 because I think it is peak shonen writing.
I think
don't
that's
That
think-
good.
entire first
Yeah.
season is
But-
just so good.
But when we get to seasons 2 and 3,
yeah, those
holy
will also be
shit.
10s. They can all be 10s.
holy
I don't
moly.
think I've
So-
ranked Jujutsu Kaisen on my list.
And
So-
the thing is that I put Hunter x Hunter as a 9, and 100% put JJK over it, but I do think Hunter x Hunter deserves a 9.
Let's get the tally for the night
I
here.
mean,
We're getting a little sidetracked.
there's not a lot
Remain
to
is
talk
dead.
about.
No, let's
That's
stop
it.
The only
Some
people,
other comedies got a few
the only
votes.
people
Yeah, but
who voted
some of us
any
have to go to Pokemon.
Dash and I both put a slay on Black Company. I also put a slay on Girlfriend and Life Lessons as
fair.
well as Remain. So Remain has full slays. It's gone. Which I don't think is necessarily a surprise. I think we all kind
The
of
last guy with 3 shows.
now the argument
2 of them are
is
comedies.
which one of the comedies are we shooting next week, boys?
Hey, you
I
never
know
know.
which one I'm
Dungeon
shooting,
Dungeon
probably.
might int again. You never know.
We'll just shoot all of them. That's the plan.
Like I said, it's a comedy, but
Yeah, just kill all of them, and then we just don't need to vote anything off for 3
so while we're
weeks.
talking about anime lists, though, what is one show that you rated like 7 or above that is yeah, this is worth a watch, even though you wouldn't think about it, or like just something that's really interesting that like you don't hear much people talk about?
Fire
Fastest
Force.
Finger first.
Yes, that's a good one. Fastest Finger
Um,
First was a very entertaining time. That's
It's
how I learned
such a
about.
it was, I enjoyed it so much, but it's one of the shows I'm like, oh yeah, that's a show I watched.
There are
It's
2
a good
for me.
time though.
There are 3 for me. There are 3. One is Death Parade, which people do talk about, but not as much as I would think.
Yeah, I need to watch that
Right.
at some point.
Actually, no. So there's quite a few in the 8s. It's Death Parade, which is really good. Fire Force, which so many people rag on for season 2, and I don't think it's that bad. But season 1 is probably an 8.5. Honestly, I just don't do halves.
Fastest Finger First taught me about Zettai Ryuki
Also, Drifters.
territory.
Drifters is so fucking good, and I'm so mad it didn't get a season 2 because that show is fucking amazing. Me and 2 friends binge watched it all in a day, and it is wonderful.
So
Also, Wotakoi. Wotakoi is great.
I have 3 for
Watch
me
Wotakoi.
that are in.
Wotakoi is very
I have
good.
3 7s for me that I think, like, that I think people don't talk about. No Guns Life. I need to watch that show's 2nd season because that show aesthetically is so fucking out there and I love it. And I really enjoyed it on the podcast enough that it was one of the shows I kept watching while we did that. In terms of shonen, I really like Radiant. Its first season's a 7 for me. I think its 2nd season might be an 8. I like its 2nd season a lot more. Radiant does one of those things where it introduces a character that's really cool and I really like it, and it does something really bad to them. I go, for the entirety of every time they show me that character. Anytime they flash that character's face on screen in season 2, I want to shoot somebody. But I think that's a good thing. And my other show is One Outs. I understand that the anime doesn't finish the story that the manga does, and I need to go read the manga because of that. But what you get in One Outs is so entertaining, and I just enjoy everything about it because it's one of those shows where its protagonist is not a good person because he's a schemer. And the whole idea is that basically he, like the One Outs guy, the main character does these games of baseball where he'll challenge people who come by. He'll be like, if you can hit the ball before I strike you out, you get money. And just no one ever hits it. And he winds up, like a pro batter winds up walking up. He's like, oh, so you think you can disgrace baseball, huh? And his team's like getting washed up. They're having a bad season. And he goes and he gets injured while at bat trying to hit this guy's ball, but he realizes that like he's actually not a bad pitcher. So he winds up roping him in because like he technically hits it. Like the bet is if I hit your ball, you have to come play for us because he realizes he's good. And what winds up happening is the pitcher winds up carrying the team to some success. While in the background, the manager of the team, like the team owner, is setting up deals where he's like, okay, and for every single person he winds up walking or lets get a run, we'll make so much money back, and he'll make so much money for every person he fully strikes out. So it's a gambling money game in the background too. So it's a psychological baseball thriller, and it is so good.
Kind of sick.
Like
you have to send me that one.
Yeah, what
Speaking
else?
of baseball shows, one of the ones I don't hear talked about at all of a sports show, Ace of Diamond. It's very long and it's very baseball, but it's a sports anime that's very long running, very like amongst people who rate it, very highly rated. And it does baseball very well, and it's the most expanded like usage of the high school like Japanese like koshien like structure, right? Of how like qualifying tournaments and how many team schools have for elite schools and this and that, and like how competitive this gets and this and that for koshien and all the stadiums and stuff. It's really interesting. I like baseball, so it's really good. Another a slice of life rom-com type show that is really really good that I don't hear anybody really talking much. Real Life. Um,
Yeah,
it's a
Real Life's a
complete
good
story
show.
with the extra final arc they added. It is a complete story.
Yeah,
They
like,
missed obviously
4-episode
some part.
OVA,
The
yeah.
Kenketsu Hen. I was so excited when they announced that. Real Life very good. Another show that's different take on the slice of like the growing up as a teenager aspect. Kokoro Connect.
I was just about to bring that up.
I showed this to Mason. This is one of the most interesting like takes on like understanding others, similar to what Kiz Ever does, which is another show that like nobody talks about the great moments in that show because they go, it's very basic and it's a trigger show, so you're expecting more action. But the actual like human element and the characters of those shows is so done. It's done so fucking well.
So, Kokoro Connect is one of the few shows that we watched it, and I went, I'm reading the light novel.
How is that?
And it's really good. It's really
Have
cute.
you, because there's a lot more light novels than there is actual like content. I've heard.
I only read the first one after, and then half of the second one after the show ends. But it's very good. Best girl wins.
My
Best girl wins in that show. That's
I
why I'm
need to
most hyped
watch
about.
that. That's the show I always look at and go, oh yeah, it's one of those shows
We
that
can't-
looks like chaos.
We're not gonna spoil who best girl is because that spoils a lot of the show. But like
Yeah.
our best girl wins, and that's what matters.
my sports show of choice is one that's a little difficult for me to recommend because it's so
Kuroko no
fucking
Basket.
long.
Prince of Tennis.
Tennis. There is I have
Yawamushi
never,
Pedal.
I have never seen a sports show go so in depth into every single player on every team that Prince of Tennis does.
I don't know if that's great or
So,
terrible for
It's
pacing.
both. It's both.
You reminded me of a show that I have seen a bit of and I need to watch. Hanabato.
Yeah,
Hanabato is the badminton anime, which is fucking hilarious that it's so
Yeah.
good. But like,
It's
there's
framed as like climbing girls trashy, isn't it?
it's
But like
framed that
actually
way,
really
but
good.
But like, so like, there's a point where they're talking about how there is a serve that only left-handed players can make, and it's like really like complex and weird. And my friend Gail showed it to me. I was like, "There's no fucking way that's real." And then I looked it up, and it's an actual thing in badminton.
So
It's fucking great.
It's like the baseball thing where like all baseball players basically have 20/20 vision, and the majority of infielders are right-handed because it's like more efficient for getting people out, so it makes them better fielders.
so it
Like,
makes
is it like that kind of thing?
what makes Prince of Tennis really dumb but also enjoyable to watch is that like it takes the superpower like Kuroko like kind of side, but also like everything's semi-grounded in actual technique. So like they'll mention how like their technique is a variant of a real technique. So like the character who when he hits the ball arcs it around like the judge's chair and it hits on the inside like is technically like a real whip shot that you could do, but he takes it to such extremes that it gets really dumb and really funny. And the main character and Ryoma as a main character is like he is supposed to be like the perfect tennis player in regards to the fact that like he's a prodigy, he's so good, but they have him lose games and then like he'll learn from it, and the way he develops his toolkit is really interesting. And one of my favorite bits they do with him is that he has a shot he does that he can only do with his left hand, and so everyone assumes he's a lefty because he does that shot, and it's a twist serve. So when he serves it, the idea is that the ball comes back up at an angle that it bounces towards your face, so it's really hard to hit.
It's hard to hit.
But the idea is he's actually ambidextrous. So at different moments he'll use different hands, and that's how you'll know what techniques he's gonna use. The show's wild, and some of the characters literally get insane, and New Prince of Tennis is its entirely own ballpark where they are literally hitting upwards of 12 balls back and forth at each other at the same time, and it's dumb as fuck.
There's also
I
cool,
agree.
like that's like the Ace of Diamond thing, where like there's a scene where like one of the guys, he's like a leadoff batter for the team, and he's like a second year student at the time at the start of the show, and now he's like the third year, I think. And so one of the things is he's a switch hitter, right? And in the second season, they get a new manager basically for the team, and like
Mm.
an assistant manager because the coach is going to retire if they don't make Koshin. And so basically, this new manager is like very analytical, very Moneyball style, right? And he's looking at the stats. He's like, why don't you just hit left-handed all the time? Because you're a leadoff batter, you run very fast. Your job is to get on first base as easy as possible, and you bunt a lot. So taking that extra step is actually a very big thing for like hitters like that who are very speed focused because you can get more infield hits out of it, right? And it's like, why don't you just bat left-handed all the time? Your splits are very similar. You're only slightly better like right-handed against left-handed pitching. Why don't you do this? And he's like, because I think switch hitting is cool. But like the analytical aspect of it, like he just always want to be a switch hitter, so he does it. But the analytical aspect of it is like really interesting. Like they don't do much of the shifting and stuff because
Yeah.
it's still high school baseball, and so like there's no real tendencies for pull hitting as much. But yeah,
The
but this could be a whole nother podcast where I
Yeah.
just ask you like, what recommend me a show with this criteria?
my
Like-
sleeper show of all time that I think is incredibly good
sleeper
that
show of
most
all
people
time.
don't know about, and Michael knows what it is because it's on my 3x3, and he doesn't understand yet.
You should make
why
three
it
by
is.
threes.
Digimon Tamers is a fantastic
Blue
product.
Infinity 22. Is that you?
Digimon Tamers is incredible, and you will never understand it until like you have experienced what makes it so good for like out of the Digimon context of why it's so incredible.
When we get like lower on shows on a podcast, we should like do like
Yeah.
kill time with other special. Like we should make a 3x3 episode. 'Cause I
So-
want to make one, and it'd be
so-
so fucking hard.
I think I need to go and change up mine because there's some
Probably
choices
I'd
I
have to
made
change
on
mine,
So-
there.
I think.
One thing I think that could be cool is like if we can talk about this after the podcast. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, the last thing I want to mention, there's a show I have to give a second chance before I can recommend it to people because it's older for one, and two, I haven't yet figured out why it resonated with me when I first watched it, and I don't even think I finished it. But there is something about Chrome Shelled Regios as a show that when its ED plays, it would bring me to tears. And very few shows do that, and I need to re-experience it to understand if it was like a moment in my life with an odd connection it had, or what. It's on my to rewatch list because of that. Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming out. Yeah, Remain's gone. We're gonna have the comedy death match next week, most likely.
Mhm.
Unless some
I'll probably
funky
watch more
stuff
Remain, but-
happens. But
Dude, it's gonna be so hard for anything to crack top for. I'll be honest.
Also-
Like I fully expecting my shows to be going in the next 3 weeks. However, that top 4 discussion's gonna be so fucking
yeah.
hard.
if
Dude.
you're interested in watching a side of the podcast where we yell a lot and I have to mute the Discord side of the audio to close out the stream, join us either Wednesday or Thursday, hopefully this coming week, where we will be sitting down to do the next episode with Group 1. All I'll say is we have a message in our group chat to which Nathan typed in old caps. I won't say which one, but fuck one of these shows in particular. And I get the feeling it's not the show I hope it is. So that'll be fun for the week. We have a couple of things that are still floating on that side. It is the 5th episode of Detective, so maybe it's that. Maybe it's pissed them off as much as it's pissed us off when we got there, because it would be that episode.
So I mean, like based off what I've heard from Group 1, I think they'd find that fucking hilarious, and they're gonna keep it around.
You'd be surprised. I think Peach Boy and Detective are both on like a thin wire with that side of the podcast. In all honesty, any of these shows could do anything to change their mind. The only show that I think is realistically safe is Realist. And probably Goddesses, just because I'm only here to suffer. But I will
Suffer.
close out our podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.